Well, Monty, you've been talking to us about the numbers. You've been using something called the predictor to predict who is going to win. What do you think this time?
Okay, well, we're down to it. We've had 2 rounds of matches happen on our top 8. 6 players are at 0%. We have 2 players left. It's a mirror match, and I cannot overstate how close it is. Look at this. 52% for Matt Nass,
wow.
48% for James Dimitrov. And just to give you an idea of where these numbers came about, it's all about Matt Nass has the play. James has a little bit better sideboard cards. Matt just went through a grueling mirror match, leaving him a bit exhausted. All of these are factors that we're taking into consideration when deciding, alongside the stats, where these edges go. But this finals could not be closer.
All right, one word apiece. Who do you think's gonna win? Monty?
Matt Nass.
Riley?
Matt Nass.
All right, let's see what happens. It's time for our finals here at Pro Tour Etherdrift. I'm gonna send it on over to Marshall and Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Wow. Matt Nass, the only player that can get Riley to break from his strategy of going against Monty every single time.
I can't believe Monty even factored in fatigue factor here in the finals. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I want to see a real detailed breakdown of how he came to those numbers.
Yeah, hey, you got to be ready to go, and we are. We've got the finals coming up for you. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Domain Overlords mirror match between Matt Nass and James Dimitrov. This is a skill and endurance test. Make no mistake about it. Matt Nass, wow, look at that record.
Unbelievable. First one to lock in that top 8 seeding, and of course that eliminated or removed Matt Nass from the tournament and just got buys for the rest of the way. So 15-1, great start, but James also with a fantastic record here at 13-3. James winning 3 mirror matchups. You saw the sideboard. James has a really good sideboard ready for the mirror, but Matt Nass also coming out on top in the semifinals matchup in a very, very long 2-hour match.
Taking a look at Matt Nass coming into the feature match area here. This is his 3rd top finish. He is no stranger to playing Magic on a Sunday for all of it. James Dimitrov, first top finish, first Pro Tour. And I have to say, he's handled it very well.
Yeah, unbelievable. I was actually outside prior to them just kind of waiting for the finals match to begin while Corey and Italy were in the booth. And, you know, James came off as somebody who didn't seem overly nervous. He actually looked fairly cool, calm, and collected, despite the fact that this is his first Pro Tour in the finals. Incredible.
I'd be nervous. Okay, we are underway here in game number 1. Big picture, Paul. What can we expect? I mean, neither of these decks can really win the game that quickly, and yet they seem to have answers for each other's threats at the same time.
Yeah, so, I mean, we saw kind of that 40-plus minute game in game 1 with Matt Nass in the previous match, and that's certainly something that's on the table. Even kind of when Matt Nass was interviewed, he was saying how the only matchup that he was really concerned about in the Swiss was the mirror, because there is a non-zero chance things could end in a draw.
Yep.
So we could potentially be in here for a very, very long match. However, Matt Nass did mulligan to 5 this game, and James Dimitrov has a turn 2 up the beanstalk.
Yeah, up the beanstalk is absolutely critical to fueling the fire, as these players will be casting many spells that will trigger it over the course of the game. And look at this. Not exactly what temporary lockdown was in this main deck for, but it'll work.
Yeah, but when you're on a mull to 5, obviously James can have something like a leyline binding to get it back, but Matt's not really in a position to let James snowball the game with that up the beanstalk, thinking, look, if you have some way to get this off the battlefield, so be it. It's not really going to be a great card for me anyways. And if you take a look at James's hand, 2 answers for it in hand there in 2 copies of Get Lost. Kill the temporary lockdown, get the up the beanstalk back, draw a card.
Sure.
Really, really great stuff.
James is going to be mana efficient here and go for his Overlord of the Hauntwoods to get his extra land and continue to outpace Matt as far as resources goes.
Great draw here, though, for Matt Nass. Up the beanstalk. That is the name. That is one of the most important cards in the matchup. If you are the person that doesn't have a beanstalk in play and the games go on for 2, 3, 4 additional turns, That is just a ton of cards your opponent's going to be up on. Granted, they're able to cast some number of overlords out of their hand.
And there's the first get lost. And again, you're going to see these players fight over these up the beanstalk. Most of the players that play this deck a lot just call it beans.
Matt Nass certainly does.
But currently, beans down. His is in the graveyard, and those map tokens aren't doing much right now either. Matt's hand is impressive, though. He has Zur +1 each of the overlords.
Yeah, he could just go for an impend on the Overlord of the Mistmoors, play Hushwood Verge, and even crack one of those map tokens to just try to sculpt what he wants to draw here. Or just hard cast Overlord of the Huntwoods.
Wow, go big or go home, says Matt Nass. But uh-oh, on end step there, James Dimitrov is going to free his beanstalk
Draw another
from the lockdown.
Draw another card off of that, and then just hard cast his own Overlord. Draw a card as well. So this Beanstalk has drawn James 3 cards, right? It's come into play twice, and then he's also been able to cast a large creature to trigger it.
He's got a land drop as well, but you can see how much more action James Dimitrov has been able to accrue. That said, Matt's kind of hanging in here.
Yeah, just haymakers going back and forth. Matt did find the get lost here. If he does want to slow down the Beanstalk, he can certainly fire off the get lost here on up the Beanstalk, get that off the battlefield, and still has the mana left over to get Overlord of the Mistmoors onto the battlefield if he wants to put a couple of flyers into play.
How important is Zur in this matchup? We've seen it be almost a combo piece against particularly aggressive decks where one big swing with your creatures can send the entire damage race back in your direction. What about here?
You know, it's one of those things. It can still be an incredible top deck. We've seen Matt Nass in the Swiss actually set up a board where he had quite a few overlords that were all impended, and then in one turn with, you know, let's say 9 mana in play, you can still run out that Zur and just activate all of your overlords in one turn, even some of your leyline bindings, and kind of put your opponents in a tough spot, because even if they have the removal spell for the Zur, that activation still happens. So you still have an army of large creatures to attack with. So very, very good, but we'll note that the life gain swing part of it, not as big of a factor in this matchup. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if both players can get up to really ridiculous life totals just because there's just a bunch of life linking going on.
I'll do it again.
Very tough decision there for Matt Nass. Day of Judgment was on top of the library, and this is one of those precarious situations where you're not quite sure if you're going to want to have that ejector seat ready to go, or if, you know, maybe you're the one who's actually ahead. As it turns out, he did end up leaving up the Beanstalk on top of the library, and he gets to follow up with an Overlord of the Mistmoors.
Yeah, so really interesting turn here for James. He can actually go Zur, activate the other Overlord, gain a bunch of life, which would make it very difficult for Matt Nass to win the race. But remember, Matt Nass also has a Zur of his own. So he does have the ability to play the Zur, activate the Overlord of the Mistmoors, and get in a huge attack. And right now, James doesn't have a sweeper.
Rides on this. Sure.
Okay, so Ride's End will take care of the tapped Overlord.
Just drawing so many cards here off the Beanstalk. He's up so many cards on Matt Nass here, aggressively going after Matt's own beans.
Nice.
Yep, yep.
Another trigger there from the Overlord of the Hauntwoods.
And Matt's
deciding if he wants to jump.
Yeah, he is at 20 life. Could, but probably just takes it here. Oh, and James has 2 mana available, but no actual removal spell here. So Matt can kind of get his engine going here. Actually has the mana to go Beanstalk, Zur, and activate. Or alternatively, Zur, activate, and cast Get Lost.
Yeah, plus, if you cast up the Beanstalk first, you may even find something else.
Yeah, but if your turn is, I suppose, if you're not going to be playing an expensive spell this turn anyways, given what Matt Nass has, might just be interested in just kind of running all the other abilities out first, and then go Beanstalk on the following turn and set up for a future draw.
Okay.
There's also the map token. All right. Leading things off with Beanstalk here. James does have a Zur of his own.
Oh, sorry.
Up the Beanstalk on the stack.
And James just bluffing, might be representing another get lost, but doesn't have one in hand.
So he says, sure, take your card. Oh, was it into another one?
No, this is 3 mana. This is a Zur.
Ah, Zur, okay. But he did draw another Up the Beanstalk off of that original?
Seems that way, yes.
Oh.
This will help swing the life back in Matt Nass's favor. If you can get an attack and you attack for 7, gain 7 life, and then you have 4 flyers in play as well for blocks. Now, James can follow that up on his side as well, because James has his own Zur. So James can go Zur, activate my Overlord of the Mistmoors, my Overlord of the Hauntwoods. One can already attack, and then he can actually activate both of the Overlords here.
Well, we promised haymakers.
That's what this deck does, and neither side has, like, everything's just going to resolve, and it's just a matter of, all right, do I survive the thing that you do,
right,
so that I can untap and do the thing that I do?
Right. Yeah, if we're going to use boxing analogies, this is also 2 fighters that can take a lot of punches.
Absolutely. Lots of removal, lots of card advantage effects, ramp, sweepers.
For most of the weekend when we've seen this type of play happen, it usually more or less closes out the game. It doesn't necessarily end the game that turn, but it usually does the next turn. That's not the case here.
Right, because your opponent can just do the exact same thing on the crackback. So as long as you don't just die immediately, right, at any given point, your opponent can just play their own Zur and hit you back and gain back all the life that they lose. Matt, thinking about how much damage you can possibly take here. By attacking this way, you still have 3 2/1 flying tokens available. So if you want, you still have a triple block available on an Overlord of the Hauntwoods to actually trade.
Up to 21. Go ahead. This goes to 2.
And then Matt's going to pass the turn back over to James.
And James's hand really doesn't have a whole lot. Beza not especially strong here, so I think the only play here is just Zur, activate my Overlords, and attack back as well. Now, Matt Nass is the one who does have the answer for James's Zur. So what that'll basically do is, let's say you use Get Lost on James's Zur once it hits the battlefield, well, James still has an army of Overlords, but they don't have lifelink.
Right.
So that kind of changes at least the racing situation.
Yeah, it's funny. I've described this matchup. You know, sometimes we talk about things having like a small incremental advantage. This is more about big incremental advantage. It just swings back and forth.
Right.
Okay,
Oh,
Beza.
You have more cards.
Less creatures, less life.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just
So you go to
life?
16
Just
and get 2
gaining
fish.
some life here.
Okay.
Oh, and creatures, right. Okay.
Yeah. And then now do you run out the Zur? There's nothing else really to play, right? Okay.
There's Zur.
Certainly want to activate the Overlord of the Mistmoors.
This will
Be
only
my
let
case.
you activate 1.
Right, not 2. Now, the other one you can still keep on defense, right? Because it's on impending 1.
Sure.
Combat. Trigger.
So
Tons of lands available here. We'll at least gain 13 life here,
13.
make two tokens. And like you said, in most other matchups, it's just game over if somebody does this.
I mean, come
Not
on.
here, though.
large incremental advantages being shipped back and forth.
Right. Imagine if Matt Nass draws a sweeper here. Then just everything gets reset.
Right.
And then Matt has the second up the beanstalk, might even have a slight edge if he can just find Day of Judgment off the top.
Yeah, I think, you know, if Matt Nass were to win this game, you know, he's been behind since the beginning. He mulliganed twice.
Right.
That second up the beanstalk would
Sure,
be
I'll do this.
how?
Sure.
And look at this. You see the fact that Matt keeping the one token back, mattering significantly here,
14.
able to get one Overlord off the battlefield.
So these trade.
Well, no, I gained more than 23. And
Oh, sorry, excuse me. That was that one you did animate, or you did not?
No, that one's
you
not.
did not animate.
I did
right?
not. This is just.
Yeah, so
It's
that
a
one's
6/5,
six, so 29.
9,
Sorry
14.
about that. And he's dead.
Yep. And yeah, you took your damage.
Yeah, the Hongwoods is a little bit
7,
weird.
14.
If you animate it, it's a 5/5. If you don't, it's a 6/5.
Right.
It's somehow bigger. But the
Yeah.
Mistmorse is the other way. It ends up being a 7/7 when animated.
But no removal from James here. Now Matt can probably lead things off with an up the beanstalk here. Possibly uses a map first to just see what he can draw. Also has a surveil land in hand. So sequencing going to be very, very important here.
Yeah, not a lot of wiggle room here for Matt Nass. He just got assaulted from the other
surveil.
side with all of that lifelink. Oh,
Oh, he instantly
Holy
get that
bits.
thing.
wow.
up.
He usually doesn't leave it that quickly.
I'll go to combat. Sure. Attack with this. Get 2.
I imagine James is going to, oh, not actually trying to get it off the battlefield, just chump blocking.
Oh, okay.
Beans?
Now we're going to see Beans.
Yeah.
I'll play beans. Draw.
Ride Zen maybe? Oh, another Overlord.
I'll play Leyline.
Oh,
Binding.
Leyline.
Oh,
Excuse
okay.
me.
And draw 2.
Draw to kill Zur.
I'll
Wow, and he found the Ride
He
Zen.
found Rides End too.
You can use that here too and draw 2 more cards.
Yes. Matt
Wow.
Nass staging a comeback.
I'll ride Zen this guy 2 draws.
This is incredible.
What a turn for Matt. Drew his card for the turn, drew a card off up the beanstalk, drew 2 more cards, and now 2 more cards off up the beanstalk.
Yeah, up the beanstalk is kind of a problem. It just gets really out of hand here. And he's got to get lost here. Do you hold on to that or do you kill the beanstalk, right? It's like that's a real legitimate question here.
And then I'll pass to you.
Just
Turn the question.
turn 7 or 8 of the game. Both players at a healthy 21 to 29. And James flooding out here.
Oh, he's flooding.
3 lands.
I kind of had him penciled in for just drawing a sweeper, but
Right.
does he have any way to get any cards in hand here?
There's just no way to actually draw cards.
No.
Just
So you're going to
attacking.
combat. I just think.
And Nass
Yeah,
does
you
have
can
get
go.
lost. But at this point, it
Attack
doesn't
with
matter
the-
if James gets more lands, right? He's already got
Right.
11 mana sources in play.
Right, that's not a bottleneck at this point.
I'll
And
just
these don't have lifelink, remember?
Right.
So Matt's just going to double chump, and the turn gets passed to him from James. Matt must be wondering what is going on.
Yeah, and now he is turning things around here. Look at his hand. A 3rd beanstalk if he wants. Might be a little bit scary playing the 3rd one. There might be a little bit of fear of potentially decking yourself before you get to kind of play everything.
Yeah, it's worth noting that up the beanstalk, not optional.
Not optional.
Can fly a little too close to the sun.
Right. And how aggressive does Matt Nass want to get here with the Zur? Has the option to animate the
Yes, 3rd beanstalk.
Leyline Binding here as well. Finds another Ride Zen. So that's just kill a thing, draw 2 cards. Oh, 3 cards.
He's drawing
This is ridiculous.
3 now. And Matt Nass, let's just say he's turned the corner.
Absolutely. What mulligan to 5?
No kidding.
Leyline Binding, things just completely snowballing out of control here now for Matt Nass. With Leyline Binding, 1 mana, kill a thing, draw 3 cards. Overlord of the Hauntwoods as well. Infinite gas here in hand for Matt Nass.
So with Zur out there, is he going to just start waking up bindings and maybe even up the beanstalks and getting frisky?
Doesn't necessarily have to because of all the removal spells that he has. I could see animating the Leyline Binding just because that hits for so
It's
much.
so huge.
Yeah, and because this is now allowing you to attack for 13 damage, make 2 flyers, and James doesn't even have a good block. You can't kill the Overlord of the Mistmores.
No, this is a tough position for James
I
because he
gained
needs to find a
13.
sweeper just to reset, but he's down so much in straight up card advantage and up the beanstalks on the board that it's hard to imagine that that would even fix the problem for him long term.
And then
Probably just passing here. Could maybe just fire off Get Lost on the beanstalk at this point, given that you do have a ley line binding.
This is the counter, and your upkeep.
Upkeep, kill the beanstalk.
Yeah, kill the beanstalk. That's how he comes back. You're so far ahead. What are the avenues to victory for James? And it's chaining a ton of expensive spells in a row.
You know what the avenue is? It's exactly what Matt Nass just did to him. Another land off the top, and I think that's game one going to Matt Nass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, James Dimitrov just conceded. Wow, that was an unfortunate run of lands near the end. James with a big lead in the early to mid game there, but he wasn't able to hold on to it primarily because Matt Nass stabilized just enough and then found the second and then third copy of Up the Beanstalk.
Yeah, you just see how important that beanstalk is in the matchup. It's still important for you to draw the expensive cards to go with it, which James wasn't able to pull off, but you saw James aggressively use his Get Lost to deal with Matt Nass's first Up the Beanstalk, but of course Matt Nass was able to find two more, and then it really doesn't take much, right? Once you have two beanstalks in play, you play the one spell, that'll often just make sure that you never run out of things to do for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the way this deck is constructed, it's almost, less likely.
Yeah, that's the thing. You get to play two removal spells in Ride's End and Leyline Binding that cost 1 or 2 mana that draw you a card every time you do so. That's just incredible.
Yeah, Ride's End has been clutch all weekend for this deck. The exile effect matters a lot, too.
Absolutely.
Take a look at Matt Nass, up a game. This is very much an interesting battle in terms of experience, as Dimitrov is playing in his first Pro Tour, handling himself very well, I have to say. But Matt Nass has been here before.
And Matt Nass has multiple Pro Tour top 8s, 5 Grand Prix titles.
Right.
So no
13
stranger.
top 8s there. He just knows what it's like. And he's used to it.
Yeah. Looks like James going down to 6 here. But as you can tell, this is not necessarily a matchup where a mulligan really kind of ruins you. Your opponent doesn't just run you over. And if you mulligan and you do find an Up the Beanstalk, that can just completely unmulligan you, basically, in a sense. And you saw that with Matt Nass. Went to 5 that first game.
So much more important on the long-term outcome of the game, whether you have an Up the Beanstalk or not, versus some mulligans. By the way, it's worth noting, you saw the players shuffle, and now they're resolving mulligans. No sideboards just yet. This is a best 3 out of 5 match here in the finals. In fact, all day on Sunday. And the players will be going to sideboards after this game, regardless of the outcome.
Is this a no green source hand?
Yeah, it is, and that was a big sigh there.
Oh, geez. There isn't Beanstalk, but no green source to potentially play this on turn 2. But that might have been one of the first times I got some indication of perhaps some slight frustration, or just, this is kind of a tough one.
There's a big sigh from
You're down a game. You're keeping a reasonable hand if you can find that green source.
He's got blue and white mana available. If you watch Matt play, he will look at the card for Surveil and then go back to it to decide whether he wants to keep it or not. Sometimes it looks like he puts it right back on top.
Okay, Surveil land into the graveyard, needs a green source.
That was not a green Surveil land.
It was not. Now Matt Nass does not have a Beanstalk of his own, so this game can certainly go on for a bit. He doesn't have any big edge here, but Matt Nass does have turn 3 Overlord of the Huntwoods. That is, if you don't play the Beanstalk turn 2, that's the thing you at least want to be.
Forest off the top, untapped and green. Clean living for James Dimitrov.
Okay, that's big.
Gets the first Up the Beanstalk on the battlefield too, so we got ourselves a game.
And Matt Nass certainly going to run out an Overlord of the Huntwoods here, get the ramp going. Will be the one who's actually has the mana advantage here, despite being on the draw this game.
Yeah, that is the one thing that he's going to gain after. It didn't, not a land drop stumble for Dimitrov, but a color stumble.
Right. Yeah, next turn, Matt can even just hard cast another Overlord of the Huntwoods. forcing an answer
think I would
and still
do that.
ramping you,
Yeah.
especially when you don't have the beanstalk.
Rough hand again for James. He's just going to play a land and pass.
Yeah, noting that one thing with James's list is that he plays 3 copies of Get Lost and only 1 copy of Ride's End. So slightly fewer up the beanstalk. Still has plenty, but slightly fewer, whereas Matt Nass is playing the full 4 copies to make sure that the up the beanstalks are just far more powerful. And yeah, he did go for the hard cast. But James...
And it looks like James is going to lean on Sunfall here.
Yeah, Sunfall, kill Overlord, draw a card. Still very, very strong there.
5.
And he just wants to find more action, right?
That's right. He found Lush Portico there, too.
Yep.
Let's go 1.
And we're going to see just that Overlord after Sunfall resolves. And, of course, the Incubator token.
Matt can just maybe hardcast another Overlord. Right now you can play Overlord of the Mistmores. Just get it out there. It's like, hey, you already played a sweeper. This is my only play here. The other option is to play maybe temporary lockdown just to get Beanstalk off the battlefield. But it's very likely James has some answer to the lockdown.
Right.
Oh, Matt actually didn't have an untapped land to be able to hardcast Overlord of the Mistmore. So the only play here might be just to make a couple of flyers here, or just run out the lockdown and hope.
Yeah, the lockdown does feel reasonable, especially given that he's got Day of Judgment in his hand. This takes care of the non-creature problem. Also, he gets that Incubator token kind of for free.
Right. Next turn can play out his own Overlord of the Mistmores.
But there is that answer that you were just talking about.
Yep.
And of course, feels bad, man, when it hits the battlefield and you get to draw that extra card off of it. Oh, another one here.
Another Beanstalk,
James Dimitrov. Hey, both players have started off a little behind in their game, but up the Beanstalk will help get them back in, and it looks like James Dimitrov is set up for the mid to late game now.
Yeah, double Beanstalk here to 0 on Matt Nass's side, so really, really tough here for Matt. Now, he's got another temporary lockdown, but at this point, it seems far too risky now. You get 2 Beanstalks. If that thing dies, your opponent just draws 2 more cards on top of that. Like, what do you do? I feel like you might have a better chance of winning if you go with the Overlord of the Mistmores line instead.
And he is, though. He's going to impend it.
Yeah, because he wants to utilize the map tokens here.
Oh, okay. What is he looking for?
Up the Beanstalk?
They're always looking for that, huh?
They're always looking for up the Beanstalk. I can't imagine James's interest. I guess when you have 2 Beanstalks, you can kind of just fire off your removal spells on anything.
You're almost just looking for an excuse.
Back. Right.
Chat says beans or bust.
Yep. 2 mana, draw 2 cards, fizzle a map trigger. Probably going to do it again. Doesn't really have any other good plays here.
I'll map onto an insect again.
This one actually happens.
It's a land.
This.
Okay.
Play the land.
I'll play it as my land for the turn. Okay.
And the nice thing about this Leyline Binding is it didn't kill anything that has a come into play effect. Right? You actually kind of want to just use Leyline Binding on any token, because then if you play Azure, you just animate it, and there's no fear of getting blown out when you lose your Leyline Binding.
If it dies, yeah. You see that. They look for reasons. Plus, I mean, when you have 2 up the Beanstalk, like, that's all the push you need, right?
Exactly.
There's a targetable token.
Yeah, you literally just go, can I cast this card and have it do anything and draw me 2 cards? Yes, I'll do that.
In this case, it was even better because of map token was being burned as well. So when you put it in that context, that's easy play.
7 mana.
That's going to be Overlord of the Mistmores.
More
double
cards.
Trigger. Again, Dimitrov is just priced in to casting anything that costs 5 or more, basically whenever he can, and he's never going to run out of gas doing that.
Yeah, and Matt he has answers, but the thing is, James just continues to draw cards off of everything he plays. He's got the Day of Judgment, which I imagine he's going to cast, right? You're probably going to attack with Overlord of the Hauntwoods, then maybe play a Day of Judgment, and then possibly impended the other Overlord of the Mistmores. But James just has another follow-up, right? You have Analyze the Pollen. You can go fetch for another Overlord of the Mistmores if you want, draw some more cards. 3 mana. Is this a
How many cards do you
lockdown?
have? 7.
7.
Bad news for Matt Nass.
Yeah, I think found a Leyline Binding as well, so that can also potentially change things up. But nothing you really want to Leyline Binding because it's so likely James has a way to kill your binding.
So he is going to play temporary lockdown.
Okay.
So this means that Matt feels, well, he gets to get in here too, right? No, not quite. He does feel that he's at that position where he has to take a fairly tremendous risk here.
Right.
Like, if that temporary lockdown gets blown up, that's 2 more cards in hand for James, and he's already got 7 in hand.
Yeah, and at the moment, James actually doesn't have an answer. It doesn't actually have a Leyline Binding or a Get Lost to get it off the battlefield here.
It's 20 all right.
2020. Yeah.
So he's going to take it.
We're so used to Overlord of the Mistmores being a 7/7 due to the activation, but currently it's a 6/6, so not interested in trading here.
So Matt, considering one of his 3 options,
Go ahead.
he has the answer.
Yeah, he has the answer. It's still just a really tough spot, just because your opponent has 7. Oh, and another Beanstalk.
jeez.
Sure. That's fine.
This has been the story of the match so far, as Matt was able to win game 1 after casting, well, I guess he got all 4 of them down somehow, but he ended up with 3 up the Beanstalks. And that's the 3rd one there for Dimitrov, even though 2 are probably temporarily locked down, actually. Like, they'll probably be back.
Sure.
Okay, so no combat there. Matt could have gone with a Leyline Binding on combat, but probably just happy with getting another land with Overlord of the Hauntwoods and then just firing off Day of Judgment. And then the Overlord, his Overlord of Mistmores that's currently on 2 will get turned on in a couple turns.
Matt kind of casually taking that damage, sure. That's what he said.
James going for Ride's End. Hey, kill your Overlord, draw a card. Which means this is going to be a very easy Day of Judgment.
I was going to say, not bad for James. 2 for 1, but Matt Nass, it makes his life very simple.
Yeah, but James just continuing to get extra pressure in. You do have Analyze the Pollen here. Has the ability to just fetch another Overlord of the Mistmores if that's what he wants. Has in a track set, but in the sideboard.
It's in the board, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking. I know a few of the players had 1 in the main.
Right, yeah, it makes sense, right? If you, with 2 copies of Analyze the Pollen in your main deck, having a late game answer for this type of matchup is very strong. The downside, of course, being if you ever draw it and you play against the Gruul deck, it just kind of sits in your hand and does nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, back over to Matt.
Matt really just needs to find a Beanstalk. He's got a couple of those Leyline Bindings. You don't feel as bad when your Leyline Bindings die if they drew you a card in the process. But right now, he doesn't have anything. And this is the big advantage here. Both players have been dropping haymakers, but James has basically had a Beanstalk over the course of the entire game. So he's still sitting on 7 cards in hand, where Matt's only got 4.
Yeah, at one point he had 2 up the Beanstalk going at the same time. That's why he's able to get that big card advantage that he's got over Matt Nass.
Yeah, this is just Day of Judgment and impend your Overlord of the Mistmores, possibly. Or looks like maybe just considering hard casting one, actually. Okay.
Interesting.
saving that Day of Judgment here. James happy to trade here, and Matt saying, go ahead, hit me. Matt's gonna go down to 8 here. And if you're concerned about sweepers, then you probably don't want to just hard cast the other Overlord of the Mistborns. I think you want to kind of wait on it. If anything, you just impend it. But I guess the trade actually just is happening here.
So then do you just cast it?
I still think it's probably good to impend, because the thing is, when you impend it, you still get 2 2/1 flyers. So even if you do that, you draw a card, you leave yourself less vulnerable to Day of Judgment, and you still have the ability next turn to attack for 12 in the air.
My turn.
Yeah.
Oh, playing nothing actually.
Wow.
Oh, Matt finds up the beanstalk here.
Okay, that's what he wanted to see.
Very, very big, because that can definitely get him back in the game with the pair of leyline bindings in his hand.
Yeah, particularly if he can find another one.
You have how many cards now? 4.
Because looking right now, that temporary lockdown still is precariously holding on to those 2 copies
Right.
of Up the Beanstalk of James. But you got to feel like if those ever get freed up, it's going to be a cascade of card advantage towards Dimitrov. He has an Up the Beanstalk on the battlefield as it sits. Oh, herd migration.
Oh, yeah. The one of.
Yeah.
Get you some lands, get you some fixing, gains you some life. This used to be a staple 4 of.
Sure. Take 4.
This attack tells me James is going to run out of sweeper.
I mean, lands
some
and
kind.
fixing in life is nice, but you can pay 7.
Right.
Get you some elephants or
Sunfall, draw a card.
beasts. Oh, he almost did.
Not too much downside, given that he does have a backup sweeper as well. The question is, do you care about drawing the card here, or do you want to just run out Day of Judgment just because you have so many cards in hand already? And how much mana do you have to follow up whatever you do? So if you play Sunfall, you can still impend the Overlord of the Mistborns here. So you can still, so you're drawing 2 cards, you're clearing the board, drawing 2 cards, and still putting 2 2/1s into play. And if you're Matt Nass, you're probably happy just firing off these leyline judgments on these tokens. Right? It's just like, hey, maybe I just kill your 3/3 token, draw a card.
The bindings, yeah.
Right.
One thing we haven't seen much of is Zur. You can see 1 in hand here for James. It's been there for a while.
Yeah, and that's got to be James's last copy of Overlord of the Mistborns, right? That's he's got 3 in the deck.
Yeah, that's it then.
Oh, didn't have the mana to actually impend the Overlord of the Huntwoods there with how he tapped.
Awkward.
Needed to be a little more careful with that Sunfall. Could have untapped the Forest.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a little misstep there from Dimitrov.
Right.
It could cost him something. Oh, wow. Another binding. He's got triple binding now.
Oh, hey.
But only 1 up the beanstalk. I mean,
Right.
you got to get the other one going to impress me here.
He might just fire the first one off just to try to find a threat to play here.
Yeah.
Right? You just go, hey, I'm going to kill your token here, draw a card, and then just see if I can find an Overlord. But, choosing to play it patiently. Is James considering just land cycling here, the herd migration?
He's just going to wake up his incubator.
Sure.
Yeah.
Attack for 3,
7.
that's the easy part. Down to 7 goes Nass.
It's another beanstalk here, so that's all 4 beanstalks here for James. You know, what if there's some wild situation here where at some point Matt goes, you know what, you have too many cards.
Oh, no.
I'm going to kill my own lockdown, give you all of your beanstalks, and then you just deck yourself.
That's not impossible. He would have to do it proactively because once the spell's on the stack, it's too late. But he may be able to lock James out of just casting half of his deck at some point.
Right. It's more likely that James just has far too many resources and just wins the game here.
Yeah.
Because he just has too many things in play. But it's on the table if Matt finds a second beanstalk and has plenty of ways to just kind of stabilize the board.
That Day of Judgment looks like it's back on the menu here for Nass at some point. Right now, though, James is still just being patient. He impended both of those, so his board state is still 3. No, cancel that. He did actually play a third one now.
We need a cards and deck check now at some point, because up the beanstalk is a forced draw. It is not a may. And so sometimes you got to be careful how many beanstalks you play, because if you get to this late point in the game and you can't close it out.
Oh, he did impend that last one. Sorry, Paul.
It can get pretty tricky.
Yeah, that's weird. He's discarding a hand size right now, by the way. What the?
And we saw Matt Nass.
He discarded 3 cards.
We saw Matt Nass win, by the way, in a similar fashion. It's eerily similar to what he did in the Swiss. Impend a bunch of overlords, have a ton of mana available, then you slam the Zur. And no matter what you have, I still get to attack you for, what is this? 5, 10, 15, Leyline Binding, that's another 6 damage. That's 21.
21.
And Matt's only at 7.
Yeah, and the sweeper doesn't do anything here. So what does he need to find?
Is there a creature that kills all enchantments? That would be pretty good.
He does not have one of those.
Yeah.
But Overlord of the Mistmoors does give you a bunch of blockers.
It definitely does. And does give you a card.
Grab this. Sure.
Now Matt does have a ton of instant speed spot removal in hand. So, you know, even if James tries to animate everything, Matt can go, hey, I'm going to kill the Zur with Get Lost, for example, and then go Leyline Binding your Overlord, Leyline Binding your Overlord.
Right.
So
it's draw a couple cards off.
Right, and we'll have a couple of tokens here in play as well, just to chump block.
I'll suspend this. Draw and then 2 dudes.
Impend.
Suspend is a very old mechanic.
It is. He didn't say that on accident. That's what all the old school players call anything that makes you wait a couple of turns. Suspend.
Suspend. Still has ability to cast 3 cards.
I'll pass to you after that. This goes to 3.
All right.
So he's got 2 blockers.
2 blockers and 3 removal spells.
What does James's library situation look like? And could we see a weird play where Matt actually gives him back his 2 up the beanstalk at some point?
Get Lost my lockdown.
Life total 7. 4.
4, and they're all good except for the Day of Judgment right now.
Right. So I feel like it's pretty likely here for Matt to survive in attack. Let's see, James has 3 mana and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 additional mana after the casting the Zur. Hedge Maze comes into play tap, so it can animate 5 things after playing the Zur. So is that something that we choose to go with? 6 mana. Oh.
Herd Migration.
Herd Migration. And you know what? Matt Nass
mana.
does not mind because he does have the Day of Judgment here. Will note, though, if Matt casts Day of Judgment, he loses his tokens.
That's true.
Which means after the Day of Judgment, he only has the 3 removal spells, and James has the ability to attack with a ton of creatures.
Yeah.
Right, and you have to kill the Zur right away.
The Zur is a must kill.
So you kill the Zur and the 2 Overlord, or you kill the Zur, the Leyline Binding, and an Overlord, you're still taking lethal damage.
Yeah, you are.
And James can even animate some of the up the beanstalks too.
James is discarding Zurs right now, by the way. He has 2 backups.
Yeah, so Matt has to know that there is another Zur here coming. Yeah, really tough spot now here for Matt, given that he has had such a low life total. No way to gain life. No Zur in hand for Matt. Probably has to go Day of Judgment into... Can he go Day of... I don't think you have enough mana to go Day of Judgment, hard cast Overlord, and play the 2 bindings and get lost, right? Because that would require 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 mana.
He has 12.
1 short. Yeah, these pre-board games, they take a while. Both sides have just tons of removal. And Matt, after seeing James discard this Zur, has to be thinking, okay,
Well, there's another one in
you
that hand.
100% have a Zur in hand. What can I do to kind of mitigate that and not die next turn? And I think he's, this just looks like Matt's pretty likely to be dead here, unless he can maybe string together some good draws with those leyline bindings.
Really sweet sequencing here by James Dimitrov to be patient to try to set up effectively a combo kill. You know, when you apply all that pressure simultaneously, it can just overwhelm what your opponent can do about it.
Right.
Now,
Oh, James also has found his own leyline binding here too, which could be used to kill Matt's leyline binding.
Spell this. I
So he's
draw
digging.
yeah, this will get him a card into hand,
4. I got it.
as well as in everywhere.
Okay, so now can you go Day of Judgment, Impend, Overlord of the Mistmoors, and keep up a bunch of removal? I feel like you have to cast Day of Judgment here. You can attack first, I suppose. There's no reason not to because they fly. Those are beast tokens on the ground.
Yeah, Dimitrov's down to 14.
Those beasts alone are kind of representing lethal.
They have to go.
Yeah.
I'll crunch you for 4, 10.
I think James is going to take this game down.
It does look like it. 5 mana left over here for Nass.
I'll pass to you these 2.
So he can cast both ley lines and a Get Lost,
Yeah, you just go Zur.
but he has
And-
no blockers.
Right, you just go Zur, animate 5 things. Right? And Matt has 3 removal spells to kill whatever. The 3 creatures, let's say on the right, that's still 5 and 7 damage coming in for lethal.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that James also has a leyline binding in hand to answer one of Matt's leyline bindings.
James could animate 6 things if there were enough targets.
Oh, he has enough mana.
He's got all of it,
Oh, and he does have enough targets.
especially now.
Sure.
So we see leyline binding on end step.
Hey, that's another
2.
6/6, Marshall.
Yeah? Yeah,
He-
it's a big deal.
He drew another one. Do you fire that one off too?
Yeah, this is just overwhelming now against Matt Nass. And Matt says, sure, you got it. But that's also a little bit of resignation there because it looks like James Dimitrov is going to be able to even things up. Is there anything Nass can find with the leyline bindings? Nothing, right? Or, I mean, he can't get anything now. His of the beanstalk's gone.
He's
So
targeting the temporary lockdown.
James is?
Seems that way.
No.
Get
He's
more,
not gonna-
more beanstalks. But then if Matt leyline bindings, that leyline binding, you get your lockdown back and then you get to cleanly deal with all 4 beanstalks. Not before James draws a million cards.
And probably ends the game.
Right.
What that library's looking like for James.
As long as he's got 10 cards or so, he's probably fine. Okay, 2 more cards. And now James has got to be super careful, but remember Zur doesn't actually trigger anything.
Nope.
So you can just go Zur, activate all my big cards.
Yep.
Activate all my big cards. Don't even worry about activating my beanstalks. There are 3 ley lines and 3 overlords in play, and James has enough mana to activate and turn all of them into enchantment creatures here.
Yeah, you see it says total cards 11, so he's got 10 now. There's Zur. He throws it on the table and looks at Matt.
Do you want to concede?
Matt does not look impressed thus far. I guess he'll make him go through the motions here.
Although I'm sure Matt is well aware that this
Oh,
is
he knows.
basically, yeah, this is basically over.
Oh, yeah, so one of these is still in your hand.
Oh.
Um,
Yeah, all you have to do is just add up the number of removal spells. No, there is a shot. Oh, no, he doesn't even have up the
I
beanstalks.
know. I
Okay,
went
so-
down that road too, Paul.
Right.
But the first thing that James hit on end step there with the binding was up the beanstalk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm dead, he says. And James Dimitrov,
My turn to draw 4.
little bit of
Yeah.
a slow start for him, but he was able to come back. And, you know, as we've been talking about since the beginning, Paul, it really is about up the beanstalk here. The early to mid game is completely dominated by it. And then by the time we get to the late game, people are drawing 2 extra cards per spell off of it, maybe even 3 sometimes.
Yeah, and you even heard James say there, it was my turn to draw all the up the beanstalks here. So both players winning their respective games based on basically just the number of beanstalk activations that they got. And in that game, James was the one who kind of came out on top. Now we get to go to sideboards.
That's right. Players are going to start sideboarding now, and we'll see what they end up coming up with.
That's James's mother. Got an opportunity to speak to her a little bit. She was giving us some compliments, actually, saying
Oh.
thank you so much. She was saying thank you so much for making the games easier to follow as somebody who doesn't play as much Magic.
Oh,
she was
very
constantly
nice.
looking at her son because she was playing. James always keeps playing against aggressive decks. He goes, "My son was at 9 life. I thought he was in trouble." But you actually were able to explain that he's actually winning the game
Oh,
because,
that's
of course, he's playing the domain deck, and you're always kind of going to be on the back foot, though. But
Right.
she was very, very happy for her son, so it's nice to just see James getting a little extra support there.
That's
outside.
right. Yeah, it always helps to get a little extra support. Okay, well, we're going to take a short break here. Give ourselves a little drink of water. You go get one, too. When you come back, though, we'll be into Game 3 of the finals. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to coverage here of Pro Tour Ether Drift. We're in Chicago, Illinois, and we're in the finals. That is part of what we're playing for here, the trophy. And we've got a game 3 coming up for you here. That is going to be the sideboarded games, Matt Nass versus James Dimitrov in a relative mirror match here, Paul. Sideboards, big difference?
Yeah, definitely, big difference. And this is kind of almost an old school card that you don't see as often, but James really did not want to lose to the mirror. I think this is going to be a really important card in this matchup. That's 2 copies of Jace, the Perfected Mind, because you've seen what these decks do. They like to draw a lot of cards. They like to dig really deep and go through lots of cards. And what better way to win the game? Just mill out your opponent. Don't even worry about attacking your opponents to death. Just let them draw themselves to death, run out the Jace, and mill people that way. I think that is a very legitimate win condition and something that James is going to be leaning on after sideboard.
That's something that Matt Nass is going to have to keep in mind if these games go as long as the first 2 games went as well. You don't want to fly too close to the sun. You know, Jace can come down and mill you for 15 out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, all that digging with up the beanstalk can be something that you regret later. Speaking of, Matt Nass does have it on turn 2, and all right. Can we just take them both away?
That would be nice. I'm sure some people would be very happy if that was what happened. Can we just agree not to play with up the beanstalk in the finals?
Well, I just mean if they both have one, they just counteract each other and we don't.
Oh, so neither player draws cards?
Yeah, it's like legend rule. Like,
hey, you know
circa
what?
2005 or whatever.
I'm okay with this. Well,
right.
Matt Nass doing
disagrees.
his own legend rule impersonation there.
He's going to tell up the beanstalk to get lost, which I think I saw that in chat somewhere earlier today, too.
And now James, not able to draw a card here off the beanstalk, does have his own interactive spell here, but it's the much worse removal spell here. Got a Leyline Binding. That's typically not the one that you want to use on the beanstalk.
Yeah, anytime it's precariously stuck underneath there, but could come back, it's just another card.
And this is great for Matt Nass, though. He gets at least 1 trigger here. Boom, Overlord of the Mistmoors. Put some threats on the battlefield and draw a card here.
Great start for Matt Nass. He had the answer to the opposing up the beanstalk. He had his own, and he's got Overlord of the Mistmoors to put pressure straight away.
And is that a Zur? No, that's not a Zur. I believe that might be on James's side. But James has his own, but a little bit less impressive because his Overlord didn't draw him a card. Now, if James can just rattle off a bunch of lands in a row, maybe he doesn't care about all the cards that he would have gotten off the beanstalk because he's got a really important sideboard card in the matchup here. You see that 1 copy of Atraxa Grand Unifier, really amazing card, something that we've seen a lot of in the past of previous Domain decks, but both of these decks playing 1 copy in the sideboard. And you know what? With 2 copies of Analyze the Pollen in the main, you're effectively playing 3 copies of this powerful Angel. And it looks like Matt Nass here just continuing to get value here off of up the beanstalk. Drawing cards, and now there's just so many enchantments that James needs to deal with here. You gotta deal with the up the beanstalk, you gotta deal with this Overlord. Matt's the first one who gets to attack with the Overlord of the Mistmoors as well. Just so much to answer. Also, Matt's got some nice sideboard tech as well. You see, he has 1 copy of Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. This card is amazing as a sideboard option in this deck because you play Elish Norn, all of a sudden you counteract all your opponent's triggers. Everything has an enter the battlefield effect, right? Additionally, you double all the effects that you have. So James needs to find Get Lost or Ride's End as ways to deal with Elish Norn once it's in play. But this is big here.
So I take 7 down to 13.
Down to 13 goes Nass.
Yeah, James choosing to be very, very aggressive here. He doesn't. He's not the one that has Beanstalk in play, but does have the Zur. And right now, Matt Nass does not have a removal spell, but he does have Stock Up, which should probably be able to help him find at least an answer to the Zur.
Long game looks like it would favor Matt Nass, but James Dimitrov says, how about we just play a short one?
Right. We're going to be digging here now for Matt Nass. If you can find Get Lost plus Leyline Binding, or possibly just 2 Leyline Bindings, really just needs to find some removal spells here.
James just has to laugh here. Matt gets to see so many cards.
But I don't think he found
Did he
any
manage
removal
to not
spells.
find an answer somehow?
Yeah, stock up. This is a 1 of as well in Matt Nass's deck. He's like, I don't have enough removal in my deck. Let's just play another one. And stock up is an incredible removal spell. This is a card that was seen in some of those Azorius control decks that we saw in the tournament, piloted by Team Handshake. Ili Kassis's list playing the full 4 copies of this sorcery. But Matt Nass does see a Zur there, so if he can survive the next turn, and if James doesn't have a removal spell of his own, could potentially gain all the life back. Play the Zur, animate your Overlord of the Mistmoors, and get it back that way. In fact, this Overlord of the Hauntwoods is actually just ready to attack, right? So you can't just play a Zur and just attack for 6 and gain 6 life. Assuming Matt has the mana, but right now it's like there's 2 green-white lands, it looks like.
What does he need, a black source or a blue source?
Yeah, he needs a black or a blue to be able to play the Zur this turn and attack with Overlord of the Hauntwoods and gain some life back.
And then it starts that kind of ping-pong match.
Right.
Of like, I hit the ball over to you and everything feels great, but then you hit it back and the life totals go up and down.
Exactly. Does have, wait, let's see. There's a forest, there's a Flood Farm Verge in Matt Nass's hand. So he can run that out to try to gain some life back. What are the other options, though? Not a lot of good options. If you look at Matt's hand, there's a Negate, an Elish Norn that he can't even cast. And I'm not sure that he's going to be keen on just playing an Overlord of the Hauntwoods here and just kind of have not much of a board. Yeah, I think we're trying to race here, get some of the life back.
Play this.
He's going to play Zur and attack.
Gain 6 life. James doesn't really have spectacular blocks here, so I imagine he's just going to take it here. I don't think he's going to look to triple block here and lose all 3 of his creatures.
Matt really wants to survive to his next turn, because look at all the extra mana.
Right.
Cards, everything. It seems like
Yeah,
every
play
turn
it.
this game goes further, as long as he has the Up the Beanstalk going, it benefits Nass.
It does seem that way, but remember, James does have that Atraxa. So while Matt's drawn a lot more cards, it just takes 1 Atraxa to just basically kind of tie up the resources that you have
It's your
against your opponent.
Maybe even exceed them.
Right.
James a couple of turns away, assuming land drops here from casting Atraxa Grand Unifier, but getting close.
Now, James does have a Leyline Binding here. After sideboard, both players also board in Negate, so James does need to be mindful of Negate. And it could be one of those instances where, hey, if I really want to get that Zur off the battlefield, do I need to just fire it off now?
Mistmoors on top of the library.
It's weird, he's got a bunch of ways to search for cards.
Ooh, doesn't want it.
Right, he's got the Herd Migration and Analyze the Pollen.
Oh, gonna get it shuffled away anyway.
And if he thinks he's gonna very likely shuffle anyways, just puts it in the graveyard. Yep.
This does allow him to analyze at full value here. And it looks like he wants to keep his mana going so he can get to Atraxa.
Yeah, and has the Hushwood Verge in hand.
So that would set him up guaranteed.
Right, for the second green source here.
Okay.
And you still have a Plains left over to be able to cast Leyline Binding as well.
I'm playing.
Yep. So do you just fire this off and attack?
Okay. Comment?
Just him. Sure.
Does not look like it here. Gonna keep some blockers back and still have
So I
the
take-
ley line binding available.
Yeah, no blocks. So I take 7 down to 12.
This negate could be very, very pivotal here if James waits.
So Matt does get to untap.
Matt gets to untap and now has the ability to activate that Overlord of the Mistmores with Zur while keeping up negate for the leyline binding in James's hand. So Matt will at least be able to get a good attack in this turn and gain a bunch of life.
Sorry. That's fine.
And that's what he really needs to be able to do here.
Right. And I'm curious when it's time to run out the Elish Norn, because if you play the Elish Norn and James says, sure, it resolves, Leyline Binding no longer does anything on James's side of the battlefield. It just counteracts that ability. So maybe you play the Elish Norn, see what James does,
Suspend this,
maybe
draw.
negate the Leyline Binding, but once it's in play, James needs Get Lost or Ride's End as the way to deal with Elish Norn.
Right.
4.
Well, Matt Nass is going to continue to develop his mana base and his board.
Right.
I'll turn this into a creature.
Turn this into a creature.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that'll happen no matter what. James just wondering if he can respond by trying to Leyline Binding the Overlord, but that's not going to work because you can just activate it again and give it hexproof.
Right. Right, you just end up making him pay 2 mana and counter it without even having to use a card.
Exactly.
Matt likely wanting to lean on this negate. Will probably be pretty wary about tapping out past
I'll go to combat.
it. And these are
Okay.
really important combat steps because these are the life swings that need to keep happening to keep our players alive.
And given that Matt is currently sitting at 12, I wonder if James is interested in Leyline Binding or he just lets Matt gain a bunch of life.
Sure, I'll pass. So
Okay,
these
playing it
trade,
patiently
I
here.
gain
James is not gonna
15
play that
to
game.
25.
He was able to utilize his resources though. 2 insects jumped in
Land.
front of one of the hauntwoods.
I'll play beans. Draw.
And there's another up the beanstalk.
With negate up here.
Yeah. Now what about Atraxa?
Doesn't counter the Atraxa.
That's coming down next turn, right?
Right.
4.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't really see a lot of people play cards like Disdainful Stroke. Theoretically, it's strong against the Domain Overlords deck, but most of the Domain Overlords deck play 3 to 4 copies of Cavern of Souls. So that's the thing. This deck just feels really hard to attack from any angle, just because if you're going to play a deck with a bunch of counter spells, if they draw Cavern of Souls, they're still just going to resolve their Atraxa or their Overlords anyways.
Yeah. And once that happens to you once, you go, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
I'm not gonna bring these types of cards when somebody's just mana base can take it over. All right, here we go. 7 mana. Oh, you got me, James.
Third Beanstalk here for Matt Nass. No removal spells. James very, very aware of the fact that Matt Nass could be holding the gate in hand.
Right.
So, for example, just running out Herd Migration, probably not in his best interest here. If he wants to slam something big, it's going to be the Atraxa. But Matt, that was a really, really big turn. Matt's drawn way, way more cards.
Definitely.
Has way more mana available to him. James needed to take an aggressive line, and he did, but Matt was able to stabilize with
You're
his own
animating
Zur.
this? Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, interesting. He's actually going to animate here,
Combo.
which means no Atraxa.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah, this is still just 2 incredible triggers. Both players just doing the Zur thing.
It's funny, they look at their hands and they think about it, and then it's like, this is still just the best thing I can be doing
Right.
now.
I'm going to chump with some tokens, and then I'm going to attack you back. Okay, I'm going
Right.
to chump with my tokens, attack you back.
You're at 40-something. Cool.
But if this keeps
I'm
going,
at 30-something.
but if this keeps going back and forth, you have to favor the person that has more mana sources in play with double up the
I'd be at
beanstalk.
34.
Oh, yeah.
12, 46.
46 is the life total for James.
Play a land.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm really curious when Matt is going to decide to run out Elish Norn Mother Machines.
Thought he had played a land there, but Matt said no.
Yeah, don't think you're... Oh, okay, main phase here.
Sure.
Zer down.
I'll animate this thing.
Sure.
So in response, Matt is going to animate the last of his unanimated. He still gets the die. Yeah, put the die on there though, yeah.
Yeah, but that is pretty big as Matt Nass no longer gets to gain life.
Go.
Sure. Those lose some dice also, even though it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And
Is it time? It has to be, right? There's just nothing else here for Matt Nass.
No, there's nothing else.
2 cards here from the Elish Norn. That will also counter Atrax's come into play effect, by the way.
Oh, no way. I didn't
Yeah.
even think
play
about that,
Elish
of
Norn.
course.
Got to.
Don't cause abilities of permanent your opponent's control to trigger.
So with
How annoying
Yeah.
for James.
and with James having the leyline binding,
Look at him.
yeah. With James with the leyline binding,
Did you see him shake his head?
is he going to let it resolve?
He did.
Because he could have run out the leyline binding in his hand and at least kill something else that's in play.
Yeah.
But now the leyline binding doesn't do anything.
Oh, no.
So perhaps James is just on the use my Zer to just activate my other leyline binding, I suppose?
Wow.
I thought he was going to fire off the leyline binding there.
He shook his head, kind of laughed, and said, okay.
It is a one of. You can search for
I'll
it.
go to
It is very
combat.
powerful if you don't have the
I'll
answer.
attack with both. Get it everywhere. 2 of these guys.
Double triggers. Oh, excuse me. That only counts for enter the battle.
ETBs,
Plug
that'd be
down,
sweet.
takes 5.
But again,
But it just, the thing is,
huge swing.
if Elish Norn is in play, it just shuts off most of what your opponents can do.
Right.
They need to draw a hard removal
I'll
spell.
suspend this, draw 2.
Yep.
I get 2 everywheres.
Jeez.
you do get 2 everywheres from the ETB there. Do you get the extra beanstalk triggers? Or is that not how it works?
If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a
I'll
permanent
play
control to
this,
trigger,
Rebel.
that ability triggers an additional time.
Okay, so that's casting, so that's
Right.
why. So it doesn't.
7.
Now Matt just has
Go
a
ahead.
ton of
Stick
cards, tons of good come into play effects, and James's hand is just kind of turned off. Atrax is still a good card.
Yeah, I mean, it still has a big effect on the board just as a massive creature with a bunch of good abilities.
Right, but Matt's now got a huge advantage. James is really relying on the ability to cast the Atraxa to just get back and kind of, you know, keep up with Matt Nass's card draw engine, given that he has
Sunfall?
double Beanstalk. Oh,
James
wow.
Gray's Sunfall?
But Matt Nass has negate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
That
Yeah,
was a
that's-
good draw. That was a great draw, but Matt Nass has been holding that negate for most of this game.
He'll find a target for it.
He's got no choice but to. Oh, not
Okay.
running it out though. Yeah, and this is where just Beanstalk just kind of runs away with the game here.
All target Zer and
Oh,
This
2.
is
You get to
entering the
target 2
battlefield.
things. That is incredible. Here we go.
So he takes out 1 token plus Zer.
Double chump once
Oh.
again. No life gain this time, at least, for James.
Yep.
Yep.
This is where if Matt, you know, can really start to apply pressure, we could see the life total of James start to drop quite quickly.
Yeah, so let's see. James is at least at 41. I wonder how many cards are left in Matt Nass's deck. Does James really need to hope that a pair of Jaces are on top of his deck, and maybe he can survive that way and just mill Matt Nass? Because Matt Nass might be priced into using the negate here just because of the impact that Elish Norn has in this matchup. But Matt Nass also aware that James has 2 copies of Jace in the sideboard. So actually letting it resolve, recognizing that
1, 2,
James's
3,
main win condition
4,
here
5,
is to play some
6,
Jaces. The problem here, though, is this has now unlocked the Atraxa in James's hand.
Right. Really interesting sequence here. Because
And then,
Matt is going to have to rebuild his board. He can do it quite quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you say it was 8 or 7?
7.
7.
But I totally get Matt's perspective. Atraxa is kind of the only card that James can have, which makes things kind of annoying. Because
And he could beat that.
Right, and he has so many other cards. Oh, that is a Nissa Ascended Animus. Now, if Matt can rebuild his army, those everywhere lands, those are forests. We saw him already pull this off before. All you need are maybe 3 or 4 creatures in play. Use the overrun ability on Nissa Ascended Animus, and you can just kill your opponent in 1 turn.
Which, if you pay full price, you can do that right away.
Absolutely.
7. I'll play Nissa with full mana.
That's
Draw
fine.
2.
Double beans.
Double beans. We're assuming it's not enough.
I'll
No.
minus Nissa.
You get your Zur back.
On your Leyline Binding.
Yeah, these are some of the really big sideboard cards coming in now.
I'll animate.
And that one was already on the battlefield, right?
Right. Now, James can activate the incubator token here
animate.
to block. But Matt
It is
trying to
huge.
build a big board here.
Play a land. I don't think I played one yet.
Might just use the Terra Sunder on the token, actually, after James chooses to activate.
Just soak up that 2 mana and then
Right.
zap it.
Or
I'll
Leyline
go
Binding
to
to just draw cards. And that's a
combat.
good target for Leyline Binding.
I'll attack you with both. Get everywhere.
So much mana here for Matt Nass.
I'll play this. Draw 2.
Yep.
Kill that.
This is 11 damage coming in now.
And then
James down to 30.
Sure, you take 11 to 30. I gain 11.
Matt definitely going to keep up the negate in hand.
Um,
We can't see all the cards now. Matt has 10 cards in hand. Going to have to do a little scrolling, but certainly going to keep that negate that he's been very, very
I'll,
patient with.
Go to my discard. Or sorry, this.
This and
that's
then
great. 2
the
lands,
cleanup
2
step, as it were, 3 cards
Yeah.
going away.
And that's when you know you don't need any more cards, when you start discarding up the
Right.
beanstalk.
Right, when it becomes a liability. Look at all that mana, too, for Nass. That is crazy. He has got James Dimitrov down to 30. Are we finally going to see Atraxa here? Yep.
Yep.
Yep,
that's fine.
that one resolves. Now, Matt Nass does have the removal spell here in the Terra Sunder to cleanly deal with this, but hey, that is a get lost, which is very nice. What kind of enchantment do you want? Leyline Binding is another removal spell, if that's also what you're interested in.
Can he find enough off of Atraxa to turn this back in his favor?
He is at 30, so I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
got a cushion.
Yeah, I don't think Matt necessarily has lethal, although that Nissa's on 8, so he played it last turn.
Okay,
Sorry, yeah.
Leyline.
I think it's on 6.
It should be on 6, right?
I think that
see-
is a 6.
Oh, okay.
Because the
It's-
8
it-
doesn't need a dot.
Yeah, okay, it's just the lighting on it.
The dots
It's
for
kinda-
the 9,
Yeah,
you
so,
get me? Yeah.
so given that the Nissa is on 6, Matt Nass will not be able to actually use
Where'd that
the
get lost? Yeah.
overrun effect
Oh, okay.
next turn
Right.
for a
You-
potential lethal attack.
Yeah, he'll make a creature with it, and then the next turn, watch
Right.
out.
Yes.
But he does need a board state to do that with. It doesn't have to be
Absolutely.
crazy, but he needs something.
Yeah.
Which he will have, by the way,
Yeah.
assuming he can dodge a sweeper or something.
Yeah.
Couldn't actually find a. All right, so good removal effect, up to Beanstalk as well, and at 30 life, so likely
Sure.
not dead here.
Yeah, James is interested in drawing a bunch of cards still.
Right. Still has leyline binding available. Let's see, we're attacking for 5 plus 6, that's 11. There's another leyline binding, that's 17. 2 beans is 4 more damage.
I'll
That's
animate
21.
leyline.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just Atraxa, right?
Thing.
Yeah. Does he want to animate up the beanstalk? It is a death toucher.
Still end step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll animate one of the beans.
Okay. Okay.
Sure.
Do you still want to stop in my upkeep?
You thought it was good
Right.
when it was just drawing you a bunch of extra cards. Wait till it starts attacking.
It does everything.
I'm sorry, I won't. I won't.
You want to stop? You're
I'll
still
just
in
do
your
it.
end
I'll
step.
just do it now.
Okay.
And then draw.
Oh.
What did he do? He had a removal spell there?
Okay, yeah. He
Oh, okay,
He
fine.
leyline binding the Nissa.
I think I can kill you.
Wait, but if he kills the Nissa, doesn't it just come back with max loyalty? Mm-hmm. And then you just overrun, right?
Actually, that would be a nice shortcut for Matt
kill
Nass if
that,
he can just
then
get rid of
I have
it.
a million forests, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually doing
That
the
is
math
rough.
now. This might backfire
And
on Dimitrov because it wasn't actually doing
forests,
anything that
right.
turn
Right.
on 6.
yeah,
He wasn't going to be able to win, so this absolutely just works, and it's lethal, right?
And he's tapped out.
Yeah.
It's like easy lethal too.
Wow.
Wow,
the-
that
the
really
beans was
backfired
like a
on
little bit.
James.
Yeah.
Matt Nass picks up game number 2.
Yeah.
Maybe I made some mistakes, but
Yeah. I mean, these games are complicated.
And when Matt Nass says these
Probably
games are
made some mistakes,
complicated,
too.
these games are complicated.
Yeah, I was a
Given-
little
given
scared I was
the-
just gonna get cheesed by the
turn
Zerg
5, yeah.
stuff.
I thought that was my best.
Yeah,
hand
I've
there.
been to Sunfall. Maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a tough game. Lots of tough decisions to make. You know, we know that if Matt maybe just countered the Sunfall, he probably just wins on the spot there. But of course, completely understandable where if you're in Matt's position, you are so far ahead on resources, you go, you know what? I know this is a bad exchange for me, but I still have a ton of stuff to play out of my hand. The only way I think I can lose is if you maybe draw both of your Jaces,
Yeah.
and he was playing around that.
Right, he goes
Okay.
Jace full, Jace
Yeah.
full, you're done.
Yeah.
That was a long game, and James couldn't even find one of those Jaces.
No kidding. How many does he bring in?
There's 2 in his sideboard.
2 in the board.
Yeah. But at that point, it felt like it was going to be too tough for James to really be able to come back. Matt was just way too far ahead on resources. So many everywhere tokens. He was going for the leyline play on the Nissa, just going, you know what? Look, I just got to hope you don't have a way to kill my binding because I'm just in a really tough spot here anyways. If there's an active Nissa in play, you give Matt Nass every single turn, Matt Nass just gets to kill another enchantment on the battlefield.
Yeah, we did see the sideboard cards that did make it have a pretty good impact on the game. Nissa was huge. Atraxa was what kept James even kind of hanging around there.
Right, yeah.
Didn't ultimately get him over, but
Drew him 4 cards, but by that point, Matt had just drawn simply far too many cards and got far too many activations with the Overlord of the Huntwoods, where even Atraxa and all the cards from that were just not enough.
Good luck.
3, 4, 5.
okay, Matt Nass up 2 games to 1 versus James Dimitrov.
Me too.
Can the Pro
no,
Tour
probably.
veteran finish off
Seven
the
each.
newcomer Dimitrov on his first Pro Tour?
What a run.
He's got to win back-to-back games in a complicated, drawn-out mirror match against Matt Nass. This is hard mode for sure. If he can pull this off,
It
well,
would
he'll
be,
have earned that trophy times 2.
it would be the dream run. Looks like both players with Beanstalk. I imagine Matt Nass is going to keep this. I see an Analyze the Pollen and an Up the Beanstalk in hand with some mana sources.
All right, game 4 underway here. And Dimitrov decides to surveil his Overlord of the Mistmores into the graveyard, back over to Matt. James on the play.
Sure.
Yeah, Matt Nass needs to find a blue source here with the negate in hand and 2 green-white lands, I believe.
Like to get up the beanstalk
All right,
going, and it's
here-
the same thing that James says.
Here we go again. But this is a great start here for James. You have the turn 2 Beanstalk on the play with turn 3 Overlord of the Hauntwoods. That is the ideal start, especially in this mirror. Matt Nass drew that Elish Norn again. Could have a pretty large impact in the game if James doesn't have a Get Lost or uses the Get Lost on another target. So Matt Nass can choose to either use Get Lost, get the Beanstalk off James's side of the battlefield and then play his Beanstalk on turn 3, or just kind of play the game of, all right, you have your Beanstalk, I have my Beanstalk, let's just see what happens.
Sure. Go.
Never feels good,
Right?
but it also feels pretty good.
Yeah, well, Matt's just kind of playing the role of the control player here. He was the one on the draw in this game, so just trying to control all the ways James can get ahead on cards. Great hand here for James, actually drawing that Jace to Perfected Mind. We'll see what kind of impact that card's going to have in this game.
Go.
No counterspell available or removal spell here for the Jace. Do you just run out the Jace here, or do you just get the Overlord going?
Yeah, I'm curious to see if James is interested in just having one on the battlefield, or if it's more of like a finishing move that you wait till the very last second and set up.
Nope, it looks like he wants to go after the Beanstalk here.
Okay.
You could still play the Jace, it'll just have less loyalty for 3 mana.
Yeah, max.
That is an option. And he's going for it here.
Okay.
All right, it will have 3 less loyalty here.
No me for 3.
It adds up quickly,
Yeah.
you know, and this deck isn't very good at pressuring the Planeswalker from a creature standpoint, so sure.
Yeah, and you got to draw a card off of the exchange, and now you just have another problematic permanent that's in play, and it's not like Matt can kill it by attacking it this turn. Taking a look at Matt's side of the battlefield here, a lot of powerful options here. Might just go for up the Beanstalk here. Has analyzed the pollen,
go
but
ahead.
might be interested in keeping up Negate. But James probably doesn't even care that much. Ooh, you get to see the one of Doppelgang in James's sideboard here, which can be very strong, but it's gonna have to wait for a situation where Matt Nass doesn't have 2 mana available here. Gets to tick up the Jace, and then probably just running out Overlord of the Mistmores here. Get some 2/1 tokens onto the battlefield. Put some extra pressure here on Matt Nass's life total.
James doing a good job of getting the front foot out and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and now you can also use the map token here on one of the tokens to just make sure you find something good here to play. Now if you're on Matt Nass's side of the battlefield, do you just slam? Do you just run out the Elish Norn? Just kind of hope for the best. Is that his best option here? There's no Overlords in play. He's got his Zern in hand.
It is starting to feel like he needs to just do the best thing he can every turn. That isn't really where you want to start. Whoa, that library's.
Yeah, and if Matt plays Elish Norn, then James can cast Doppelgang and copy the Elish Norn and get one on his side as well.
Funny. And then nobody's doing anything.
Right, it's just creatures. But James has the far superior board if you just look at what's in play. We got 2 Impended Overlords in play along with Jace. Probably just getting a land here. No lands in play in hand here for Matt Nass. But then what do you do? Yeah, Matt didn't even have land number 5 to play the Elish Norn, so his only option here is play Zur or keep up Negate or the Leyline Binding. So not a lot of strong options here for Matt Nass. Little bit of a clunky hand here.
No kidding, and a nice clean curve out for James Dimitrov. Perhaps one downside to milling your opponent, though, is that it does set up Analyze the Pollen for them.
All right, so it looks like Matt's going to go get Overlord of the Hauntwoods. right? Because that gives you the chance to guarantees you the land still, and you can draw a card off the beanstalk, which could potentially draw you another land.
That you could
so you
play
hit
per
kind of double land drop for the turn.
I'll get Overlord.
Yeah, that would be a nice thing to get him right back in it as far as mana goes, but he's behind on board.
Right.
I mean, even with this, he'll have no relevant board.
Yeah.
Drop.
And how much mana are we looking at for James's side? 6. So kind of want to get to 8 mana to get some really, a lot of extra value here with the Doppelgang if possible.
He did hit a land, it looked like.
Oh, that is very big.
Yep.
This Surveil one. Okay.
Because that also turns on Leyline Binding. Right now you can play Leyline Binding for 1 mana. You can even go Elish nor Leyline Binding. Get rid of 2 things if you feel you're super behind on board.
Oh no.
So that's definitely very, very strong here.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, but Matt
Go
has
ahead.
a lot to fight through here.
He does. I mean, he's got the 4 permanents out front, the double maps, the Overlord, and the up the beanstalk, but they just don't do anything right now.
Wow, did James draw Zur?
Yeah.
Zur is really, really nice here. Got to be, of course, a little bit careful about potential sweepers. So maybe you don't attack with the Mistmores. Maybe you just attack with the Hauntwoods, because that's becoming a creature this turn anyways.
Sure.
And you still get to develop your mana.
Sure.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen.
An attack for 10.
10 damage
So
coming
I
across.
take 10.
You're down to 10.
You gain
Wow.
5.
Gain a bunch of life.
28.
Get an extra land. You still have a Jace activation here available with a Leyline Binding for 1 mana.
And take up.
Sure.
Tick up, no targets, go. What is Matt going to do to get out of this mess? I mean, a sweeper would be a decent start, but he
Sunfall.
doesn't even have one.
Yeah. Day of Judgment. I think he needs a sweeper here, really, to kind of come back. Now, he does have Zur. You can go Zur and activate the Overlord to try to get some life back. That might be kind of what he needs to do here. We did see him do something similar in the previous game to help with the life total situation here.
I'll play Zur.
Sure.
Might need to just animate here and probably just attack the Jace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll target this.
No good blocks. James has Leyline Binding, but you can't even target the
No, the damage is
the
done.
Overlord.
You can take out the
5.
Zur.
Blue land.
I have.
Although that being said, if he takes out the Zur, he can wait until the attack happens, right? And now there's no blockers
Oh, sure.
and no life gain.
But Matt Nass also just has negate, and this could be a situation
Sure.
where he's behind enough where if James runs out the Leyline Binding, you're like, you know what? I'm on the back foot. I just need to fire out this negate. Which means you will be able to get in for 5, gain the 5 life, et cetera, et cetera.
Huh. So James is going to do this now. I believe that Zur is still targeting the
Right.
Overlord of the
So you can
Hauntwoods.
So
but
you can get the Overlord. Yeah, so now Matt can either just activate it again.
so he just wants to tap Matt out?
Well, here's the thing, though. It's like, what is James going to target? I think it's still on the stack.
Oh, I see.
Because James can just target the Zur.
Of course. But
Right,
that
but-
you would
But I think Matt kind of wants the Zur in play.
I think that you would wait though, right? Because then Matt can then just leave this creature back. Because if he attacks with it and loses Zur, then he stays at 10
Right.
and he just dies.
He's just going for the negate. Yeah, this definitely makes sense.
Yeah, he kind of has to.
Attack the
I'll
Jace.
send this at Jason.
This is the way that he can actually go up to 16 and get this attack in.
Right. Now James.
Lost him dearly though. Those
Oh, sorry.
negates are very important.
This has been going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
Those
life
sounds-
totals
yeah.
are
So-
10, 23.
Or sorry, go up to 15. not
15,
16.
right. So now James has to decide, do I want to just keep my Jace alive here and just chump with my Zur, given that the Overlord's already animated, or can he just win with the Overlords and the Zur and not worry about the Jace? Now, James has 7 mana in play. 8 mana next turn. We're talking about a Doppelgang for 2. That can be extremely powerful. Just get 2 Overlord of the Hauntwoods and 2 Overlord of the Mistwoods in play.
Get out of here.
Or copy 2 Beanstalks, like get 2 Beanstalks and 2 Overlord of the Mistmores in play. There's no real wrong thing you can do if you can just resolve the Doppelgang for 2. But big decision here for James. This is very, very key. We know how important Jace is in the matchup, but James valuing the Zur here instead, going, you know what? You're at 15. I'm just going to animate my Overlord and just try to kill you here.
Removal for Zur also very live here,
Right?
as it is currently the only blocker left.
Yeah.
Is there a Leyline Binding in play anywhere?
Terra Sunder.
Oh, he's found removal here. It's Terra Sunder,
And that's
that's
just
going to be
lethal.
enough to be lethal. And game 4
Oh
goes
my
to James
goodness.
Dimitrov.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting the full meal here. Game 5.
Hey, what a
Matt will be on the play.
right, but what a heads-up play there, not just letting the Jace die, because if the Zur blocked, that's not a lethal attack. So he gave himself the out of drawing a removal spell to go for the win on that following turn.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you had a few draws
Yeah.
that killed me there. But
Big smile there for James Dimitrov. This is the moment where, you know, our competitors, it's good to take a breath, look around, just kind of let it sit. I'm about to play a game 5 for a pro tour. You don't get to do this very often in your life, if ever. And even though it's stressful, you want to kind of enjoy it in memory, you know, have a memory.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Matt's just thinking about the perfect draw here. It's like, all right, I'm on the play.
Visualize it.
Right, I'm on the play now. Let's have a Beans in my hand. Let's have some Overlords in my hand. That's a funny thing. Even after sideboard, don't really care too much about the sideboard cards. Just give me the core of what makes this deck successful, which is up the Beanstalk and the Overlords. That's just kind of what, you know, has been the key so far, and Matt's going to be looking to do that. And of course, being on the play is still very important. Monty ran it through the simulation. Being on the play gives you a little bit of an edge. So that's what Matt Nass is going to be hoping for here.
That's right. So we're going to let our opponents continue sideboarding, and we're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll be back with Game 5 of a Pro Tour Finals. Don't go anywhere.
Hey everybody, welcome back to coverage of the finals here at Pro Tour Ether Drift in Chicago, Illinois. Our players are each one game away from that title and that trophy. Welcome back to the news desk, Maria Bartholdi and Monty Devuti. But you at home could be just one tournament away from joining us here at the Pro Tour. The Spotlight Series is a new series of events, competitive tournaments that are happening all over the world, and we're so very excited for them. We're going to talk about Spotlight Series Modern, which is happening in Utrecht, coming up pretty soon here, March 14th through the 16th. And check out this sweet promo card that could be in your hands if you head there. So if you're a fan of Modern, Utrecht is where you want to be.
Next up, we do have Spotlight Dragons happening in Denver, Colorado, right here in the US of A, April 11th to the 13th. This format is limited. You don't want to miss this one. And there's a sort of Forge and Frontier promo up for grabs.
That one is so sweet. I'm excited. And then, of course, there's Magic Spotlight Secret Lair happening in Indianapolis, Indiana, May 30th through June 1st. Check out that sweet Garrick Wildspeaker promo card. Very cool stuff. Check out a Spotlight series near you. All right, everyone, we're headed up for a game number 5. Let's take a look at our bracket and find out what's happened so far in the tournament. We are in the finals. It is a Domain Overlords mirror match between Matt Nass and James Dimitrov. They are all tied up at 2 games apiece. Paid for the whole seat. Only need the edge. Talk to me about these decks. What needs to happen here, Monty?
Well, Maria, we are in sideboarding, so everything we're seeing here, it's pretty irrelevant right now because a lot of these cards, specifically a lot of these removal spells like those temporary lockdowns, are out of here. We are looking at the sideboard. So for game 5, Matt Nass, most importantly, he is on the play. That has been the deciding factor in every single game so far. We've been going back and forth with the player on the plate getting it done. So the difference in this final match could come down to just him being that #1 seed. On the other side, James Dimitrov, same idea. We are in the sideboarding, and I think he has the best sideboard card in the matchup in Jace the Perfected Mind. The only question is, can it overcome the play advantage that we have seen be so prevalent so far in the matchup?
All right, I'm going to send it on down to the feature match area for our finals here at Pro Tour Ether Drift.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Welcome back to the feature match area here in Chicago, Illinois. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. And this is what it's all about, Paul. This is why we watch. This is game 5, 1 game
Already
to decide the Pro Tour.
Matt Nass keeping a 3-land hand with up the beanstalk, but no green source. Did have a Surveil land turn 1, but if he can't find that green source soon enough, might just fall a little bit too far behind. Does have a controlling hand here, but wants Forest.
And you see no up the beanstalk here for Dimitrov on 2. That's a sigh of relief from Nass about that, but can he get his own green mana going? Hushwood Verge?
Hushwood Verge,
Thank
really
you very
good
much.
draw here for Matt Nass. Had plenty of draws here. Now you can go Beanstalk, and James just fires off that
Jeez,
get lost.
that thing wasn't even on the table yet. Of course, that individual transaction benefits Matt Nass, but he would like to have his up the beanstalk on the battlefield here.
Oh, and if Matt Nass goes for Overlord of the Mistmores here and makes 2 2-1s, James now has 5 mana next turn, can go Zur into activate Overlord of the Hauntwoods to get another mana in play. But Matt doesn't really have any other options,
I was going to say,
right?
what's his other choice? Yeah.
So this is a big turn here for James. You get to get another ramp effect, attack for 5, gain 5 life. That is really, really strong, and especially because Matt doesn't have a Zur of his own to turn on the Overlord of the Mistmores.
Right.
Even if he does draw Zur, doesn't have an untapped land, so can't even activate it next turn.
Can't have both here next turn regardless. There's Zur.
Oh, geez.
There's activate, and there's the attack, and Matt Nass has to take a deep breath.
I take
5.
5, then 15, go up to
Great start for James Dimitrov. Had the answer for up the beanstalk, and now gets a curve into the combo.
What can Matt Nass find here to come back from this really explosive start here for James
Wow, he
Dimitrov?
finds another up the beanstalk. It does feel like if this game goes long, Matt could be in pretty good shape. He had an up the beanstalk, got a 2-for-1 in his direction off of that, and now he's got another one.
Yeah, Beanstalk does have a get lost in hand for some interaction while still playing another land here. Could also just choose to go Overlord of the Hanwoods, but looks like he's going to favor going for get lost here.
Just
Does he
take down Zur.
Right, and do you want to fire that off now to play around a potential negate?
Oh. Downside being that if there's another Zur,
That would, I guess that wouldn't change.
wouldn't even really matter,
right?
so I guess you just would.
Yeah, the damage has already been done with the Zur.
That's why it's so good.
Just firing it off here. But it doesn't really matter here for
Get
James.
lost your Zur and attack you for 4.
At least you get in for 4 damage this way.
James is like, go for it. I am happy with this. I get to get another land here.
And with a backup Zur in hand for James Dimitrov, he doesn't even mind that one dying. If he'd like to deploy another at some point, whether for the life gain or to start
What's that?
waking up other things, he
Yeah,
can.
that's fine.
Yeah, because if he runs a Zur here, it's just more life to be gained, although the Zur isn't especially powerful. Now, the nice thing about the Zur is if you get it out and you run, if you have the mana, I'm not entirely sure that James does, but if you can go Zur plus Jace the Perfected Mind, you do have a body in play that can actually block and protect your Jace, right, from those 2/1 tokens.
Okay, map token now.
Oh,
Dimitrov.
another Overlord here. So this is now a 6/6 Overlord of the Huntwoods.
And then an Overlord of the Mistmore sitting on top of the library.
Leyline Binding also in hand here for James. Just kind of has all of his angles covered. You know, if Matt Nass goes Zur, try to activate my Overlord of the Mistmores, James can simply go cast Leyline Binding, kill your Overlord of the Mistmores in response.
Right. Yeah, the only thing that James doesn't have is up the beanstalk to cover if Matt can find a way to stabilize. Matt could pull ahead over time, but he's giving him all he can handle here to get stable in the early stages.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this domain deck. There's so many different angles of attack you can win with. Even if we saw in the first couple of games up the beanstalk being the absolute most important card.
Yep.
But hey, Overlord of the Hanwoods into Zur, Overlord of the Mistmores into Zur, also a very, very strong win condition. And that's the type of effect where you can potentially overpower up the beanstalk.
Yeah, we saw James on a mulligan earlier do a similar play to this, and you heard Matt Nass say, I was worried you were going to cheese me out in that early stage.
Right, he got close.
And he almost did. Yep. Matt was able to stabilize that game, and then up the beanstalks took over. But it's not obvious that he can do it here.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Dimitrov is, by the way, deep in the tank. I believe he's still resolving that map token with the Overlord of the Mistmores on top of his library.
I'd be surprised. Overlord of the Mistmores feels like one of the most important cards in this matchup. So what else are you looking for here? I think he's also got the Zur and the Jace. So just kind of figuring out what to do here and keeping it on top makes sense. Very, very strong threat.
Okay.
6.
Okay, not interested in the life total swing here. Can actually go Jace, shrink one of the flyers, and still keep up Leyline Binding. Could be looking to do that.
That's pretty
right?
nice.
Just really good use of your mana if you do it that way.
And that's what he's going to do.
6.
So Jace's loyalty is at 6 now. Miles away from Matt being able to kill it via combat, unless Zur shows up, I guess.
Yep. But even if Zur shows up, remember, James does have the binding for the Overlord to prevent that from attacking this turn.
Well, that was Zur off the top of the library.
He did, and I think Matt's just going to go for it here, but it's not going to work out exactly the way that he wants here because of that Leyline Binding. Good sequencing here from James. And does Matt play around Overlord of the Mistmores and just go, excuse me, Leyline Binding and just make 2/2/1s instead?
Oh, he is.
Does. Now
And
this,
remember, he gets a card too.
he does, and now he has enough blockers for the Overlord of the Hauntwoods.
This is a big step towards stabilization here for Nass. But he's going to be under serious pressure next turn. I mean, look at the hand there. Zur, remember what's on top of the library for James?
Right. And the problem
He's got
here,
Mistmores there too.
the problem here is Matt Nass doesn't have 7 lands next turn. Because if he had 7 lands next turn, you can go Zur and activate both of your Overlords.
Oh, sure. And
What-
just have that huge life
Right,
total
and
swing.
if you're on 6 lands, you can only go Zur, activate, Leyline Binding in response, and you're in trouble, right?
Yes,
You
'cause
can't attack that turn.
That's a tempo play.
I'll
Right.
map onto the insect that can attack.
Did you play around this turn?
I haven't yet.
Oh, he hasn't played a land yet. Okay,
No,
so
but he doesn't have one, does he? Oh, he does.
But he's got a pair, so he actually can do that next turn.
Leyline Binding the insect I map onto.
Wow.
Okay.
Leyline Binding to take out the insect.
Well, he's
I'll
got a
Leyline
Zur in hand,
that.
right? Just be
does.
aggressive. Matt Nass is down to 9 life.
I'll mill that.
But Matt has all these flyers.
It's got
Can't
3
he just
flyers.
jump with them?
He can, but hey, that clears the way. If Matt can't find a sweeper, it's still going to be kind of tricky.
Okay.
Overlord of the Mistmores as well here for James.
Yeah, that's what he left on top of the library with that surveil. He thought about it forever.
Oh, minus.
Mill me for 3.
He wants to draw a
He
card
wants
here.
to get a card now. See if he can find the tools to try to close this game out ASAP. He knows that he's off to the quick start. And he knows that Matt has been setting up, and he's got up the beanstalk. He needs to try to close this game out. There's
Oh.
Zur.
Is he getting aggro here?
Okay.
He is.
He is.
This is a lethal attack. Matt Nass has to chump block here. And James is going to go up to 33
They're
life
both
after this
6/6.
attack.
Yeah, sure.
This is a 5/5.
With a +1/+1
Yeah,
counter,
yeah,
right?
6/6, right?
So 12. So at least one of these needs to get blocked. He does have one of the insects that's a 0/1.
Yeah, Matt has to block with at least one, possibly both, just to keep his life total alive. Maybe find a sweeper, something along those lines to stay alive.
We've seen a play pattern of, activate Zur, attack with a couple of huge creatures, gain a bunch of life, and as long as one of them is Overlord of the Mistmores, use those tokens to try to chump block or keep yourself alive while gaining over 10 life per swing. But it's precarious, because if those tokens go away, you can find yourself dead.
Yeah, Matt can also triple block with the spirits on the Overlord of the Hauntwoods. Just go to 3.
Okay.
So at least you don't have to worry about the Overlord just getting you a land every single turn. And then just go for the Zur next turn and to activate both my Overlord of the Mistmores and attack.
I'll,
I mean, that's pretty good.
That is, I
That
mean, you're
leaves
down to
4
3.
tokens, though?
Yeah, that's 3, but
Triple block.
you gain a bunch of life as well. You gain 12 life.
14 life?
Excuse me, 14 life, right? Because there'll be 7.
So you're at
7s here.
17 and you have 4 2/1
no,
flyers
Yeah.
to
you
block
should
with?
gain
I
more. You
mean,
should gain
Oh,
12.
assuming that all goes well,
Right.
if you're in Matt's seat, that's pretty good.
That is huge.
Go.
There's another Overlord of the Mistmores, the one that he had left on top.
So Matt's going to be able to get in here for a huge attack.
Is
That-
it enough to keep him alive on the crackback?
Well, with 4 2/1 flyers, probably.
Probably.
Right? You go up to 17 and you have 4 chump blockers in play. So unless James draws the one Nissa in his deck to give everything trample,
Right.
that might be enough to just win in the game on the
That
spot.
could do it. All right, here we go. Zur now from Matt Nass activates
Animate
both of these.
my things.
And this is a huge combat step
Both
coming
at
back for Matt
Jace.
Nass.
4 insects.
Are they going to Jace? I don't
He's at-
suppose life totals are
Right, you're at
critical at this
you're at
point.
33, so yeah, probably. And I don't know that James has a lethal crackback, especially with all these spirits in play.
Yep. Box.
So he's going to
Yep.
keep Jace
I gained
alive.
14.
Playing for a longer game here.
Yep, goes up to 17.
Does each lose a counter. And
Okay.
So go back over to James. What does he find for the turn first and foremost? It's just another land,
Oh,
Paul.
it's just a land. Matt is going to turn this around potentially.
Oh,
Digging here with
Three.
Jace.
3 hands.
he milled 3
Okay,
lands, and he
that's-
found out the beanstalk. That's a
Hey.
redraw.
That gets things going here for James.
Okay.
What can he find?
Removal spell into removal. Well,
Okay,
it's a
get
get
lost.
lost, which doesn't trigger up the beanstalk.
It doesn't. It kills the Zur.
Yes.
So no life gain will happen, but Matt Nass actually hasn't analyzed the pollen to go get another one if he needs.
Ah. Again, another slight downside to all the
Yeah.
milling that's happened.
Yeah, but this is not.
What did he do here? He Zerred,
Yeah, it looks like he's Zuring here.
Yep.
and then he's going to map token.
It's another land.
Another land in hand. So 3 lands and a get lost.
Will Matt be able to turn
Okay.
this around? There's just get lost here. You can be, I guess, patient with this, and if Matt attacks, then you kill the Zur, and at least Matt doesn't gain life. But the issue is you still have
The
4/2/1 flyers.
Right.
Sure.
Can Matt leverage these flyers to get something relevant off the
Okay.
battlefield?
Yeah, I mean, given that he's at
Does he
17,
quad block?
given that he's at 17 life, you could just put 4 creatures in front of the Overlord of the Mistmores
Right.
to get that off the battlefield, and then at that point, James has the get lost and might be tempted to fire that off on one of these tokens.
Looks like Matt's first inclination is just to go chump chomp. But he's thinking about it now.
He did go triple block before.
Yeah, he picked up 2 tokens and almost blocked with 1 each, but now he's got 4 tokens in hand.
I'll
And
Single block.
he ended up deciding on 1, it looks like,
I'll chump.
and take 6.
Yeah, I'll chump 1 and take 6.
Okay, you're down to
I'll
11.
gain 13 to 46.
These life totals.
These life totals are crazy. Somehow Matt Nass is at a very low life total at 11.
Right.
You milled.
Yep, surveilling something to the graveyard here. James has an interactive spell here, but Matt was really on the back foot, down to 3 life, has turned it around here. James doesn't really have a great answer to a pair of attacking Overlord of the Mistmores.
And the best he can do is kill Zur here.
And Matt has the follow-up if that happens.
Yeah, now if that were to happen, he could prevent Matt from gaining the life this turn, but he just floods the board with 2/1s.
Right, so unless James top decks, again, Nissa, to give everything trample, that would be enough.
Yeah, the fact that these are both Overlord of the Mistmores means that...
Oh, wow.
Oh, he wants to get Jace off the battlefield here?
Interesting, actually attacking with those, because remember, there's a Zur in play.
Wow, he drew stock up for the turn, too.
Right, so there's a Zur in play that can at least eat one of the 2/1 flyers here.
I'll send all this at Jace.
Yeah, at your opponent's at 46.
Yeah, so this...
4
I mean,
dudes.
assuming James doesn't have like 3 removal spells or whatever, this does guarantee that Jace dies.
He's like, all right, fine.
14.
Oh, but Zur also
5.
still alive, so that's 14 more life.
Yeah, and did it actually block? Why wouldn't you block a 2/1 flyer?
Yeah, you would eat 1, I
Right?
think. He may have overlooked that.
Yeah, you definitely just eat one of those. This is a huge
Every
board
piece
here.
of cardboard counts for sure. James has to make sure that he stays focused.
I'll suspend this.
Okay.
I draw. I get it everywhere.
All right, Matt, trying to
Wow,
even
Matt.
up the mana situation here.
Yeah, 2 turns ago, he had to feel like very much up against the wall.
Right.
And now,
Now does Matt cast stock up to try to find a negate, so that he doesn't die to a Nissa off the top?
absolutely.
Only looks at 5 cards, though, and there's only 2 negates.
I'll play stock up.
James gives him a smile.
Day of Judgment. Oh, there's a negate!
That is a negate right
That is
there.
really, really big. That is really, really big. That allows Matt Nass to not die to a Nissa off the top. Yeah, the negate is 100% going into
I'll do
Matt Nass's
this.
hand.
I'll do those. You notice that his tone of voice doesn't change at all, even though that was a huge step towards him securing what could be a Pro Tour trophy here in Chicago.
Yeah, Matt Nass setting things up so beautifully there with that Zur. Waiting, could have run it out earlier.
Yes.
Could have run it out earlier, but waited till he had a double activation available.
Another land off the top for Dimitrov.
Oh, jeez.
He's drawn so many lands. He even surveilled 2 lands over the last 2 turns as well.
And all he has is a get lost here. Now Matt found the way to stabilize here. He's the one that got multiple draw steps off the up the beanstalk. He's got a huge board advantage. Life total doesn't actually matter here, given that Matt Nass is at 25 life with that negate backup for a potential Nissa off the top.
We're going to see the life total swing back and forth repeatedly here, but it
Yeah,
feels like
25.
Matt is going to be able to start leveraging these insect tokens to start chewing away at the board.
Matt Nass blocked the 2-1
He
with his
did
1-4.
remember to block, yeah.
Does feel like things are slipping away here for James.
I'll
Especially given his hand.
block like this.
You know, if he had some action, maybe
So I take 6
something to
plus
trigger
2,
up the beanstalk
8,
and get something off the
down
board,
to
then it's like, hey, anything goes.
17.
Yeah, Atraxa
You
would be a great
gain
draw
7
here.
Right.
plus
Right,
6
get
is
back into
13
this.
up to 59.
Or some way to rattle off multiple spells with the up the beanstalk in play.
17 to 59 is a life total,
Jeez.
yet somehow Matt Nass
You
is
said
the
go.
one who's ahead here.
Absolutely.
Um,
He is significantly ahead on this
end
board.
step, I'll make Overlord a creature.
So he's going to be mana efficient here because there's nothing
And then I can untap.
that's source. It's all sorcery speed, the stuff
Right.
that he's actually worried about.
Exactly.
Untap.
This is going to be 3 Overlords attacking unimpeded.
Ooh,
With-
that's a ley line, excuse me, a
Leyline Binding.
ley line binding,
Yeah.
right?
So multiple leyline bindings, you can
I'll,
use those to kill the tokens, and then you can animate them. So end of turn, I imagine you're just
Go
going
to
to fire
combat.
those off and just make some extra 6/6s as well.
This is where Matt Nass gets to just dump resources onto the
Oh,
battlefield.
geez, look at this.
We're going to run out of tokens here. He's making so many.
How many spirits do we have on deck?
Block. So total, I gain. You take 5 down to 54. I
Library
gain
size
7,
isn't relevant
14.
just yet. Nass hasn't gone through
19.
enough of it, right, to make
Right.
another Jace off the top. Any, you know, you can mill for 15,
36.
Man,
but we're not at that point of the game.
The life totals are now 54 to 36, but James is running out.
Agreed.
He's got nothing left here.
I mean,
I-
Atraxa's the best draw, right?
Atraxa or just a ton of 5-mana plays back to back to
Right.
back to back.
Right.
A sweeper doesn't even work because of the negate.
Right.
I'll suspend this guy. Draw.
But wait, there's more.
There is more, but James is at 54 life, so he does have a couple of hits that he can take.
I think you mean it when you say a couple of hits.
Oh,
That's
look
like
at
a
how much
2-turn
power is in play.
clock.
Yeah.
And
James has to find something here.
I'll pass to you. Trigger.
Right, impending triggers.
Something for James.
What can James find off the top here?
Leyline binding.
Oh, Atraxa.
He did find a
Atraxa,
tracks
sure.
off the top of the library, and there's nothing Matt can do about that. That was probably the best draw in the deck.
That can certainly get him back in this game.
He's going to look at the top 10 cards, and he can take one of each type, basically.
I think I'd be fine. I'd be okay to give it to you, but it's kind of awkward too at this point. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the bot. I mean, this.
So
was
there was supposed to be a trigger from
Yeah.
up the beanstalk that resolves before Atraxa cards get revealed.
But
And Matt says,
Would you
I'd
like
be
that
fine to
trigger?
give it to you, but the problem is we know what the card
Matt has the option now to give
is.
it
I would
to
say
the card.
no.
so if it goes on the stack, does he draw the archive or does he draw like the next card down? Like how does it
Normally
even
we put
work?
it on the stack once we're done resolving this.
So
Um,
11 card. He to total 11
I don't think you can.
Putting this on
I
Matt's kind
normally
of
give
tough.
miss triggers, but this one's so awkward.
No, it's a.
I'm
Yeah.
fine with being the archive or the card. if it's fine.
Yeah, I mean that's also awkward though. I think let's just not do it this time. It's just too awkward. Sorry. Yeah, I'm happy to give you stuff, but this one's kind of weird.
he can't just give him a card after all this.
No shot. I mean, this is the finals of the Pro Tour.
Right.
It's just too, it's just,
Sorcery,
you have
Okay.
to remember your triggers.
creature.
So that's Day of Judgment there.
Right.
Day, beans, port.
Up the
Overlord.
beanstalk. Oh, he said that, didn't he? So you mentioned Day of Judgment before, or a sweeper before, Paul. Is it just the case that the board is so lopsided for Matt that he would use the negate to maintain status quo here, or does it
You're
open
playing
the
games.
door?
Yeah.
We saw him before let a sweeper happen when
Right.
he was significantly ahead.
Now-
Jace doesn't seem to matter as much right now.
Not as much, and remember, we've already dealt with one Jace. There's only one Jace left in James's deck, but this is tough. James has now got 2 Beanstalks in play. He is right back in this game, I think.
That draw was so nice for James.
Impound.
Okay.
Draw
I-
2.
Draw 2, get another land. I don't see how Matt can at least win on this next crackback.
No, 54 life total is just too high, right?
Wow, it was looking
got
nearly
everywhere.
hopeless here for James. The one Atraxa, probably the best possible, because even if it's analyzed the pollen, there's a chance Matt Nass just counters that,
Right.
right? But if it's just Atraxa, you just can't do anything about it. Wow, and James has a doppelgang in hand as well. So if Matt has to use negate on, if Matt has to use negate on the Day of Judgment, and then James resolves a huge doppelgang, he's probably going to win the game.
He probably would.
Look at
swing
how
it
much
back
mana's in
his
play.
favor. Yeah.
Imagine casting a doppelgang here for 3, right?
Right.
3 Overlord of the Mistmoors, 3 Overlord of the Hauntwoods.
What a top deck there for Dimitrov.
Huge.
Now Nass will have a window here, though, right, to make his life easy and just draw
Step ball, play this, draw
a
card.
Nissa.
Right. Certainly could, but 54, like how many forests does Matt Nass even have? Because
He doesn't need many.
that's,
If,
yeah, that's the second. How many every land? There's 2 in play?
yes.
There's,
I mean, I think regular overrun would be enough here,
right.
though.
There's also Hedge Maze,
And because he's going to have a ley line here, too.
right? And he has all these tokens. Now remember, the Atraxa also has Lifelink, but Matt Nass does have the removal spells here in Terra Sunder
I'll
and
play
Leyline
this,
Binding.
draw card.
Right, he had to churn through. Let's see what he finds here.
2 Nissas in the deck here. You have to assume, you have to imagine that that's going to be a lethal attack if Matt Nass can find it here.
Absolutely.
But I think he's out of draws here, right?
Except for the top of the library for his
Except for the
draw
draw for the
step.
turn.
But yeah, I mean, with the bindings, he still has his Zur going.
Yeah, do you want to activate this Overlord? Do you want to activate this Leyline Binding?
And then I'll Terra Sunder with kicker at draw. So
I mean, this does
Okay.
clear the
I
way
don't
for an absolutely.
let's see. So if you
crazy
block the biggest
attack.
thing, 2,
16.
I mean, is it enough?
2, 4,
8,
6,
16,
8, 10,
17.
12, 14, 16, 18,
It can't be.
and then 19, and then there's 19 here. That's 38. And
Okay.
then
Plus
6
12,
here
50.
is 46.
So not
So I
enough.
don't think you're quite dead, even if I
48,
call
yeah.
this.
At least not on board.
Right. Unless there's
But there is a
on
top of the library for Anissa to end it right now.
Right, you can even analyze for something that's expensive, draw a card off the beans, and
Yes.
still try to find a
See
Nissa.
multiple cards here from Matt Nass to try to close this out. He does not want to have to pass a turn back.
What can it be?
That was a get lost.
lost.
I can do this one too. Do they count that?
That would be
Again, 2, 4,
48.
6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. And then,
21.
Jesus. Then this is
There's a map too, by the way.
20 if I animate, and then this is 11. So what did I say? 19 plus 20 is 39. Sorry, I can't count. What's the best way to count this?
The best way to
2,
count
4,
it is
6, 8,
all of the
10,
flyers
12, 14,
plus
16,
the beanstalk
18,
is 20.
19.
Yeah, you just
This is
assume
5.
your Overlord of the Mistmoors
So
gets
that's
blocked.
24.
But no, Matt Nass has a removal
This is
spell, right?
7.
Yes, he has get lost.
31. This is 738. This is 644. This is 6
50.
50.
And then 50, and then the 2 from the beanstalk, right?
So did I already count this? This.
Just count it again, Matt.
This is our 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19.
55 plus 6,
21.
I think it's 52 damage.
I think
Wait,
it's
no.
26.
There's an overlord there as well.
I'm just thinking if it's worth trying to
7,
figure out a way
14,
to-
19 plus
2,
7,
4, 6, 8, 10,
26,
12, 14,
26,
16, 18,
26 plus 12,
20, 21,
38,
26,
41.
33, 39, 45, 52, 59,
No.
7, 14, 21, 28, 34, 39, 40.
Plus 20.
plus
Wait, that
18
is enough, isn't
58,
it?
60.
60!
60.
W-
Do I have
These are,
enough what do I need to animate?
Right? 'Cause
yeah,
what
that's the
is
question.
So
If that's the
2,
case, then
4,
he
6,
wins.
Yeah, 'cause he has enough
I can't
mana.
kill that.
I think this is lethal.
I've
Wow,
just-
I didn't think he had
let me
enough
just
to
count
deal
it one more
60
time.
damage in one
2, 4,
turn.
6,
He
8,
says
10,
it's
12, 14,
60.
16, 18,
This is
20.
the
20. He
biggest,
did it how I
21,
wanted to count, by the way.
26.
the most important math problem in Matt Nass's life.
33.
And it's just
You just got to add.
arithmetic.
It's just
47.
simple addition here.
He can do math a lot harder than this.
Oh,
Matt.
absolutely.
53,
But this is
60.
a little different
Still
with
getting
the
60.
lights on you.
This is for the
He
Pro
thinks
Tour.
it's
Or
enough,
this.
and that's... Can he do it?
He's going to. I mean, if you're going to get lost, you definitely go for the win
He
here.
played Get Lost, Animate,
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 animate.
Animate.
Oh, man.
Let me just count this one more time. Just
Yeah,
2,
you
4,
really
6,
should.
10, 12,
That's
14,
20.
16, 18, 19,
Oh, he keeps skipping the... Oh, did he wake up the beanstalk yet?
24, 31, 38, 45, 49, 54 already.
Oh,
You're at 54. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19, 24, 31, 38.
and that's going to do it. Matt Nass
I'm
wins
just so paranoid.
Pro Tour Ether Drift. Math is hard.
Math is hard, especially when you are playing for the title of Pro Tour Champion.
Look at Matt.
Well-deserved title here for Matt Nass. Back-to-back 2-hour matches in the Domain Mirror to finally come out on top here.
We broke Matt Nass. What an incredible victory for Matt as he runs over to his friends and teammates.
What a run here for Matt Nass.
Unbelievable for Matt Nass. Always double check your math.
I would triple, quadruple, quintuple check. That is the biggest attack in Matt Nass's life, and he got in there for 60 in one swing.
Look at him. He says, I probably counted it out 5 times.
I'm sure all of his teammates already knew, and they were like, please just attack, please.
No matter how he did the math, it came up a victory for Matt Nass. He is your Pro Tour Ether Drift champion. Wow, what a victory for Matt. He hasn't been out here on the Pro Tour in a little while. He has a long history on the PT, big testing teams, 5 GP victories. This is his 3rd top finish.
Third time's
And
the
he
charm.
finally got that trophy. You know, a lot of players have really great careers, and they never get it.
No.
You know, some of the best players around, it's hard to get that trophy, and they can never take it away from you. Congratulations, Matt Nass. And, you know, we have to say, what an amazing run for James Dimitrov. First Pro Tour, and you're like a turn off of the trophy?
It was so close.
That was so tantalizingly close for James. I think we'll be seeing a lot of him going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, he is now qualified for every event this year, including the World Championship. Gets to go home with a big chunk of money. He's got to be super proud of his performance this event, beating tons of fantastic players on the way there, just running into Matt Nass, and he was just so close too. He had such a great start in that 5th game. There was so much back and forth there. It looked like he was ahead. Then it looked like Matt Nass was able to turn it around. And then all of a sudden we had the Atrax off the top, and he was looking like he's back in the game. So just what a wonderful way to finish it here. You know, kind of going into this, I was thinking, man, we're gonna have kind of a long, grindy match. And it was, but it was still a really great match.
Really great match. Yeah, the matchup plays out really cool on the board.
Right.
Right. You know, sometimes the long grindy matchups with counter spells can have a lot of non-action where it's kind of like it all happens at once. But in a matchup like this, it's still on the board. It may not be creatures turning sideways, but eventually it was, or enchantments turning sideways in this case for Matt Nass. You know, it was interesting to watch. You saw him collapse afterwards. Of course, he's probably exhausted and his brain's a little broken, but there's such an interesting combination of both joy and relief, right? You know, you've been playing this game your whole life. The thing you always want to do is win a Pro Tour, and you could see that on his face there.
Yeah, and he was absolutely able to get it done there. I mean, this is just kind of everything you dream of. He basically saw the win, and he was like 90% sure that he had it. But you know what? We would all do the exact same thing that Matt did there in the final turn. He counted 60 or 55 or something.
It changed a couple times.
It changed a few times.
But it was always above 54.
But it was always lethal, and he double-checked, triple-checked. And, I mean, you know what? If you're playing to become the Pro Tour champion, that is absolutely what you need to do there.
Yeah, really great stuff for Matt, and he ends up winning the trophy and the money. But, you know, for players of his caliber, it's really that trophy. You know, it's really the ability to say, I'm in that club. I don't know if you saw, but, you know, one of his best friend Sam Pardee greeted him right afterwards there, and he says, you know, welcome to the club.
Yeah. Pro Tour champion is just the absolute dream for every single person who comes to play in this event. Congratulations here to Matt Nass, your Ether Drift champion.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. That's going to do it for us in the booth. For Paul Chi and I'm Marshall Sutcliffe saying thanks for hanging out. Let's send it back to the news desk.
Thank you so much, Marshall and Paul. Well, we've got a new champion, Monty. Your reaction?
One, well-deserved.
Yes,
Two,
absolutely.
I thought going into that match, Matt's brain was going to be fried
Yeah.
from the semifinal he had played. His brain was fried. 3, call me a bad person, but that was my favorite match of the weekend.
It was a great
That
match,
was
Monty.
Delightful
I mean,
to watch.
I was on the edge of my seat for all of that Game 5, especially. That was so exciting.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to watch. It's so back and forth. So many moments where it really did feel like it could go either way. And just watching things end with one of the best math-oriented players, someone who regularly played KCI and complicated combo decks, having to do the math 8